Welcome back to the Rodcast. I got a lot to get into on the show. Thank you for joining us. We'll talk about the Monday Night Football result and the Eagles finding a way to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. The Atlanta Falcons getting the win. We'll dive into that, go behind the burnt orange curtain. Next segment, we'll hear from Steve Sarkisian, his Monday media availability, talking about the Longhorns, who are the number one ranked college football team in the country. We'll get into that. Also, we'll talk about what that offense is going to look like, since now most of us assume that Quinn Ewers will not be starting in that ULM game. There will be Arch Manning's offense. We'll talk about how that offense could look a little bit different than what we've seen under Quinn Ewers. We'll also dive into some other NFL news, notes, and nuggets. This is a bizarre time in the NFL when you're looking at the quarterback position. I'll explain why. We'll get into that here in just a few minutes. Also, your best 2-0 teams, the worst 0-2 teams. We'll dive into that conversation a little bit later on in the show. We'll also talk about the Texans and the Cowboys. Got some grades from the Cowboys defensive front after that embarrassing performance versus the Saints. So we'll dive into that too. We'll also get into your usual favorites. We got Raj Rant. We got what the facts, what the stats, who said that off the record. Your topic for the big fat poll of the day. We are loaded, ladies and gentlemen, here on the show. And before we get started, let's introduce you to the rest of the crew. He's one of the hardest working members of the ARN family. Got a hustler spirit, period. Not sure what he's paid, but pretty damn sure the man is underpaid. Ain't no 401k for this hustler, and he's a hustle man of many talents. It's our friend, co-host, and neighbor. It is Patrick Davis, y'all. What's going on, brother? How you doing?
I'm doing good. I am doing good. I am dealing with. I cut my foot open this weekend, and it is now become the sole of my foot was doing something in the yard with flip flops, which I should not have been doing in flip flops. It was out by the pool. Yeah. Then I went out of the yard to do something real quick, and then took a step and cut the bottom of my foot open. But it's one of those things. It was like I did it on Saturday, and I've been pretty good with it. But then you just wake up this morning and you step out of bed, and you're like, all right, I'm done with this. I don't like having an injury on a thing that I have to step on every day.
That sounds painful.
It's not fun. It is not a fun thing. Yeah. But I do want to ask this, though, because this has been a conversation I've had with multiple people since Sunday. And I was going to put on the poll, but we'll just kind of ask it throughout the day. I just want to know, just judge, if anybody on the text line, 512-447-3776, are you okay? Are you happy that Texas is number one in the country? I feel like I've talked to way more people who are worried or anxious or any other feeling other than happy that Texas is number one.
Yeah, I ain't gonna lie. I think that's just people being, I ain't gonna lie. People are just being pessimistic because of the last 15 years.
I get it.
Just carrying that baggage into it. The team is a good team, guys. It's a good team.
Exactly.
And even if they're number one, listen, if they're number one now, it really doesn't matter as much because of the college football playoff. Sark is right. Like it doesn't. It used to matter a lot.
Yeah, because if you were 3, you were out of the turn. You were out of the championship.
Yeah, so especially in my day, we were ranked number 2. I think in 2000, the Heisman rank was number 2 in 2002. We got up to number 2, and I think we ended up facing Oklahoma that year, and we were 2 and 3, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, it mattered more because, like you said, you didn't have a college football playoff. You had to stay highly ranked just to give yourself a shot, because essentially it was a beauty contest and it was vote. But now with the college football playoff, the number one rating, guys, it's just helping in recruiting. It's just a recruiting boost. That's all it is, guys. The playoff is what matters. Now it's a recruiting boom. That's all it is. That's all it is now. It used to matter, and I think y'all are still carrying the same baggage and y'all are still have the same perception of that number one ranking like y'all did back in the day. It doesn't matter as much. No. Now it is all a recruiting bump. It's all that, so you can go to recruiters and go, man, we're the number one team in the country. We told you we was gonna get there. Now we're about to go win a championship. Like it's all recruiting. It literally doesn't matter at all now when you get late into the season, the highest ranked conference champions, and you want the bye and all that kind of stuff. Then we get deep into it. But if you're talking about getting into the playoffs, Texas is going to get into the playoffs. They're good enough to get into the playoffs. And then it's football. So I know why y'all are paranoid about it. I get it. But that's because the last 15 years, y'all have been programmed to expect the worst. And trust me, I've watched it too. So I get it. But it's, I don't carry the same type of negative stigma with it that some people do. I felt it too. I don't understand it. I don't understand why people are paranoid.
No, I want to
Makes no
ease
sense at all.
people's minds a little bit
Yeah,
about it. And that's why I
doesn't
bring it
make
up, is
sense.
because I keep hearing this. And I'm like, guys, this is not the same thing as some other seasons. This isn't like, for multiple
Yep.
reasons, this isn't something that you have to sit there and go, we got to number one too early. We need to, like, week 9,
Yeah.
maybe, but oh no, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, that you're worried about something you do not need to be worried about. You should be very
Exactly
happy.
right.
You should be proud of what
Yep.
this team has done. You should be proud of the fact that they have taken care of business early in seasons. Be extremely happy at this thing that we've all suffered for seasons trying to get and hoping that it could turn around. That, look, things may still not go perfectly this season. But right now you should really, really enjoy the number 1 ranking, because what Rod said is true. It's great for recruiting. It's great for team morale. It's great for a lot of different things. So, but if you guys want to tell me, if you want to tell me that you are actually excited on the text line, please go ahead, because I keep seeing people that seem much more anxious about it. And the phrase that I keep hearing is, "I wish we just stayed at number 2." Why?
I know exactly.
What difference does that make at all?
Because I'm thinking about 05. And 05, I believe Texas was like number 2 the whole time, and USC was number 1.
Yeah.
And it's like, trust me, I understand the paranoia. I do. I get it, but I don't think there's a need for it. I don't think I think it's unnecessary.
And again, if you're thinking that the mental part of the game, that letting Georgia move to number 2 is going to make them feel like underdogs and go, they can already make themselves that. They can already, like, you can manufacture that. Tom Brady and the Patriots were the number 1 team in the country for like 10 years, and every year they walked out, we're like, no one believes in us. And so you can manufacture being an underdog. Yeah. You can manufacture all of that. That's not, I get, you could say, I'd rather go beat Georgia and then take over the number 1, but you can just beat them at number 1. You can still Texas, beat them, and everybody goes, we were right early.
You're never going to be the underdog, guys.
No,
even when you can't be. Your brand is too big. You can't have it both ways. You can't be Texas, the big brand, that the most affluent brand in college football, the most influential brand, have a Manning on your damn roster, right? And also be like, man, I want that underdog card we can play. No, you don't. No, you can't. You don't get that. You don't get that. You got to go in there as Texas and be as big and as brash as Texas. That's just the reality of it. So it's an in-season award, guys. It's all it is. It's an in-season award. That's all. Think of it like when the players get these individual weekly awards, when they get the Thorpe Award DB of the week or the Maxwell Award Player of the Week. That's all this is. Yes. It's a team award for the week.
Yeah.
That's in a nutshell.
Exactly.
And so that's all you got to think about it.
Be happy.
It's a weekly team award, right?
Be happy. Be excited about it. It's a good thing. I'm trying to calm some people that are finding ways to worry in a season where things seem to be going well. There's plenty to worry about. There's injuries. There's everything else. If you want to stress and fret, you can go on that. And
there's some valid concerns.
There's some valid concerns there, but yeah, number 1 is not something you should be concerned about. I will tell you who's number 1 on the show always. My co-host. He's a proud alumni of DBU. He's got more papers than Dunder Mifflin and watches more film than Siskel and Ebert. He is the new Rod, father of Austin Sports Radio, Mr. Rod Babers.
I appreciate that intro, and great point there. Yeah, I felt some of that from Longhorn fans too, and I don't know. I think Longhorn fans they want something to worry about. It's just been a while since your team's been this good.
I think that's it.
Right, and they're so used to stressing. Texas fans are just used to stressing. Last 15 years, we all been programmed to stress about it instead of just enjoying the ride. And even last year, right? There was some stress. Some stress. There was a lot of stress last year, right? You had close games, down as the team couldn't hold leads, that kind of stuff. This team just looks different, and they look better. So I think the team overall is better. But I think ultimately college football is a little different right now. Don't y'all feel that? Feel the parity in college football right now?
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of parity. It seems like Texas, I just said parity, but Georgia just played a tight one against Kentucky. I'm not saying Texas won't end up into some close games too, but it just seems like we thought Kentucky was going to be a bad team after watching Kentucky in the first couple of weeks of the season. And then they end up playing Georgia down to the wire. Now, football is about matchup, so some teams just match up well with other teams. We see that in the NFL all the time, right? Look at Cincinnati. Cincinnati can lose to that team, but they match up really well with Kansas City. They just kind of built and constructed that way. So that's a part of it too. But in a college football year where it seems like parity is to me, it seems like it's more prevalent than ever in college football. I think you got like 2 or 3 teams that separate, and Texas is one of them. I think Texas has looked as good, if not better, than every other team in the country, and that's with their starting quarterback going down.
Yeah,
which is probably the most impressive thing of all.
yeah,
To look
exactly.
that good with your starting quarterback going
No,
down.
and that's
So,
what I'm saying. It's been a good season so far. Everyone should be excited about it and be happy that Texas
yeah,
is doing
just
well.
enjoy it.
Just
Don't freak out about it. Just
yeah,
enjoy it. Quit
just
stressing
enjoy it.
about it. Just we have not. I guess we forgot how to just enjoy these. You know, I mean, these
Yeah.
seasons when your team is good and you know they're gonna be good. You know they're gonna get 10, 11 wins. We had these doing the Mac years, but you know what? During that years, local fans were still complaining. I think it was true. They were still upset during those years too. So hey, you know what? In whatever way you want to enjoy it, enjoy it. I'm gonna enjoy this a little bit though. I'm gonna enjoy the team being good and talk about them being really good.
Yeah.
You guys usually know I am as critical as it gets when it comes to the team and analyzing the team and the psychology and the scheme. I've had a lot of fun following the team and analyzing the team this year because they are really good. I mean, I don't think I've gone off one time this year yet. Usually by now, third week, I've had some just going. Robbie started the show going off. Just, oh
Yeah,
man, that
that's
dude's
true.
he lost
Yeah.
his damn mind. I've not lost it, not one time on anything at all.
No. So
And
far,
I
we've
don't
had
think I don't think it's gonna happen this year, really. I think it's
I'm
just
sure.
gonna.
I'm sure there will be some mess up that would happen at some point because it's
But I
college
don't know
football.
if
And
it's
as
gonna
you
cause
said,
me to go off though.
no,
I've
maybe
gone
not. Maybe not.
off the last 3 or 4 years
Yeah.
at one point
Yeah.
on the team. Just going off. Just
Yeah.
lost it 30 straight minutes of just going off the rails. No, you know, I mean, it's just, and Longman's like, yeah, Rodney makes a good point. I don't know if he had to say it so emphatically, but he does make a good point. I don't know if I see that coming because the team to me doesn't have any deficiencies that I can focus on, you know what I mean, and fixate on like I have
Yeah.
before. I don't see those. And the coaching has improved. The scheme has improved.
Yeah.
Decision making, game management, a lot of things that I used to harp on, they have improved. Now they're not going to be perfect. Everybody's going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
There's going to be a coaching decision here that's questionable that I disagree with. Of course, that happens. But in terms of me having to, like I said, fixate on something and bring it up show after show that they have to improve, and this is the issue, or this is the issue that is going to be debilitating enough, or the Shakespearean flaw that is going to cost this team, you know, a chance at playing at a title or a chance at reaching their ultimate ceiling as a team. I don't know. Right now, I don't see that. It could change, but I don't see it right now. That's why I feel like I'm enjoying the season a little bit more, just because I think I'm gonna be less aggravated and frustrated with some of the decisions and some of the schemes. So, and I already feel that. First 3 games, I feel that already.
No, it's felt. Yeah, I mean, you have the Michigan game, which we'll see throughout the season where that Michigan game actually ranks with the season. They looked better. They looked better the next week. They looked better last week. But you never really know. You get by that time we'll also have OU and
isn't Orgy starting now? Isn't Orgy the starter? They change it up. I believe
I think he
have
played at some point. I think they both played last weekend still. But
okay, let me go check that. I think I saw that he was going to be the starter. But anyway, continue. Sorry.
But yeah, and then we'll have coming up soon enough. You get to play against an SEC team. You get to play against Oklahoma and Georgia, and then really get a better judge of what this team could be. So I just wanted to start off the show because I heard it a ridiculous amount of times between Sunday and Monday. From people that texted me or I talked to or where that responded to it in a way that I didn't feel like you should.
Orgy started.
Okay.
That's what Orgy's. Yeah, Orgy.
Yeah, you should.
So different vibe with the offense now.
I thought it was a funny. I thought it was just.
You're right.
I just thought it was funny that there was that many people that were like, I don't know. I'm like, do you think? And I, like what I keep trying to tell people is like, do you think Alabama or Georgia ever walked around? I was like, we're number 1 for the 98th week in a row. I don't know what we're gonna do. It's like you want it. You're supposed to be. This is what we're aiming for. This is what these guys have worked for the last 3 years.
Exactly.
And right. Sark's plan of what they're going. This is everything. Being in the playoff last year, it's all to get to where we're at right now. And now you have to keep it going. But if you can't keep it going, that's the problem that we'll go yell about on the radio.
Yeah, exactly. And I haven't had to really yell about anything so far this year. I mean, yeah, we made critiques and suggestions, but I'm not screaming and yelling, which is actually pretty good. That's a good sign. Sharon Moore announced that Alex Orji is going to be the starter for the USC game.
Okay.
So they're going a different direction with the offense. Well, I think going to add quarterback run game to it. and more go with the some of the option run game as well. So we'll see how it works out for them. You're right. We don't know exactly what that Michigan win is going to mean later on down the line, but we do know Texas is good. We just don't know.
Yeah.
We don't really have the true barometer yet because we don't know about how good the opponents have been yet in terms of Colorado State, Michigan, and UTSA. All right, good stuff there. No, you're right. I agree with you. You're right about. I'm glad you addressed it, Patrick. I have not felt that, but I have myself personally haven't felt it. But I know why Longhorn fans are a little paranoid
by the way,
about it.
If you want to know why Alex Orji is starting the next game, the QBR for Davis Warren in last week's game against Arkansas State, 21.8.
Against Arkansas State?
He had 3 interceptions.
I can't even disrespect them. I don't know if they're good or not. How many?
3 interceptions and no touchdowns.
I
mean, they still won, but
yeah, without a vertical passing game. Just like I said, like they don't have a vertical, and I don't know if they're going to have one with Orji either. At least Orji provides you a dynamic catalyst, though. As a dual threat quarterback, you have to account for the +1, which means you're going to have to go load the box against them. And when you do drop back to pass, there is the scramble element, and there's the element of him making something out of a broken play, which Davis Warren cannot do. So I see why they're doing it, but I did not know Davis Warren was that bad. He regressed quickly.
Yeah.
So he actually had a better game against Texas than he had against
I think once people started to get some game film on him, it started to go downhill.
Yeah, that's true. Good point. Texas didn't have much game film on him either, actually. Yeah. Good point to that up until then. All right, there you go. So in Texas, by the way, I believe, since we're talking about Texas, they are favored by 44 and a half.
Oh, it's dropped? It was 45 yesterday. So, changing the line.
Oh, really? I didn't realize that.
So I'll worry about
it. That's the number that I saw. And that's against ULM and General Booty. General Booty is the starting quarterback for ULM.
Because I saw 45 yesterday. And the thing of how many teams can lose their starting quarterback and be a 45-point favorite the next week. Never won. It's crazy.
I think they can cover that number.
Yeah.
I mean, I really, based on how they played so far, I think they can cover that number. And that's a huge number. But yeah, Arch with a week of practice. We'll talk about how the offense is going to look. I mean, it'll look a little different with Arch at the helm. So we'll get into that. But first, let's hit the horn headlines. Then we'll come back and talk about the Monday night football game that the Atlanta Falcons pulled out the win. It was an ugly win, but they found a way to do it in the clutch. But first, let's get updated. Let's get educated. Let's get informed with all the top stories of the day with Patrick Davis and the Horn headlines.
All right, your Horn headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. In the MLB, the Astros dropped their opening game with the Padres 3-1 last night. Spencer Arrighetti was able to get through 5 innings, giving up 2 runs, but the Astros offense couldn't get anything going against Yu Darvish. Hunter Brown gets a call today, trying to even the series against Michael King and San Diego. The Rangers begin their series with the Blue Jays today, with Nathan Eovaldi getting the starts. This will also begin the Rangers' last homestand of the season, playing the next 7 at home, where they are currently 7 games above 500 this season. And in the NFL, the Falcons snuck out a 22-21 victory over the Eagles on Monday Night Football. Drake London touchdown with 34 seconds left gave the lead to the Falcons, and a Jalen Hurts threw a pick to seal the game. And that is your Horn headlines.
All right, Patrick, thank you for the Horn headlines. Yeah, let's get into that game last night. I don't know how much we're going to put on Nick Sirianni, because the truth is, if Saquon Barkley catches the football, I don't even know. We're not having this conversation. Eagles win, and the rest is history. But that 3rd and 3 from the Atlanta 10 with about 1:46 to play. Falcons were out of timeouts at this point too. Nick Sirianni and the Eagles, they called a pass, which, like I said, Saquon Barkley was open, and Jalen Hurts delivered the ball on the money. And, man, he just dropped it. Saquon just dropped the football. Saquon was having a really good game. That stops the clock after the field goal. That pushed the score to 21-15. Then the Falcons, they just had more than enough time to drive down the field. Now, the way that Kirk Cousins was playing, it wasn't a guarantee that he was going to drive down the field, but he got a lot better in the second half. You can tell he started figuring things out in this game. And on that game-winning drive, that was the best we've seen Kirk Cousins play all season. He was 5 of 6 on that game-winning drive, 70 yards, had a 154.8 passer rating, and, of course, the go-ahead touchdown to win the game. And it was on prime time, and the knock is that, you never see Kirk Cousins show up in prime time. But, man, Kirk Cousins, you can tell that he has got some I don't know, maybe it's Father Time or maybe it's the injury and him recovering from him. He's having some trouble throwing the ball deep outside the numbers. Some of those deep outside the numbers throws. He's still great throwing it in the middle of the field, in between the numbers. That's his money, kind of a money zone to throw the football to. But man, he was struggling a little bit trying to get the football like deep outside the numbers. And I don't know if he figured things out or maybe you give credit to the play calling, Zach Robinson. But think about this first 6 quarters. So we're talking about game one for Kirk Cousins and the first half versus Eagles. His completion percentage below 60%. One touchdown, 2 picks, passer rating of 63, and only had one completion of 20 plus yards. But in the second half versus the Eagles alone, 166 passing yards, 10.4 yards per attempt, 148.5 passer rating. Like I told you, he had a 154.8 passer rating on that last drive. And his explosive play percentage, I had 2 passing touchdowns. Explosive play percentage went up to over 18%. In that second half. So maybe they figured out something. And I think a lot of it may just be adjusting the scheme to what Kirk Cousins can do now. And maybe they had unrealistic expectations for him in game one. When they asked him what was the difference in week 1 and week 2 for him, he gave a hell of a compliment to TJ Watt. He basically said the Eagles don't have TJ Watt. That's what it is. And a slap in the face to the Eagles pass rush. They don't have TJ Watt. And TJ Watt just that damn good. I don't know why the Eagles defense, though, speaking of their pass rush, didn't blitz Kirk Cousins on the last drive at all. Like I said, he was 5 or 6 on that game when he drove 70 yards and a touchdown. When they blitzed him, they held Cousins to 40% completions, 3.4 yards per attempt. Didn't blitz him one damn down on the final drive. Pretty much played their version of prevent defense. That was a dang coaching mistake too. But yeah, I know people are blaming Nick Sirianni because you shouldn't call that. I watched the Manning cast, some of it. Here's a little bit of the transcript of the Manning cast because they had Matt Ryan on. So it was Matt Ryan, Eli, and Peyton.
Yeah, I
3
saw some
quarterbacks.
of it. I saw it early with some Bill Belichick on there.
Yeah. So, but when they're watching basically the final drive, when they're watching the Eagles' final drive and watching the Falcons' final drive, here's what Matt Ryan said at the 2-minute warning. I don't think the ball's going in the air again. This is obviously before they decide to throw it on 3rd and 3. Here's Peyton. Here's the back and forth between Peyton, Eli, and Matt Ryan. Think they'll get the ball back, Peyton? Eli asked on the broadcast as the Falcons were using their final timeouts. If Philly throws it, Peyton answered, they're not going to throw it, Eli scoffed. Ryan agreed. This ball shouldn't go in the air for the rest of the game. Eli and Peyton thought the Eagles might try to tush push. They even brought that up on 3rd and 3. They should try to waste time and then, force them to milk the clock a little bit more and then go for it on 4th down and try again for the tush push and didn't gain the 3 yards. They said they might just tush push it to the end and try to milk as much time off the clock as possible. And then Peyton said, you can't throw it here. And then after, of course, the incompletion, Peyton said that's why you don't throw it. And so even some of the best quarterbacks of our time watching that scenario and thinking you don't throw the ball there because of human error. That's why you don't throw. Yes, it was a good play call. Yes, he was open. Yes, it was a good throw. But you have so many different moving parts and working parts that have to all be executing perfectly for you to be successful in a play. And you just can't account for all of them. But the fewer factors, the fewer, kind of random variables you can eliminate in that situation, the better. And Dick Sirianni, like I said, it was a good play call, and the throw was there, but you let too many unknown variables into the equation, and it came back to bite you. And one was the hands of Saquon Barkley.
No, and it was very much of this is with the Cowboys' problem with Kellen Moore play calling is these kinds of plays. That was kind of that same concept of no, he's not a bad play caller. He does a lot of things right, but then he just makes little boneheaded moves every once in a while where he defies all logic and says, "No, this play will work." You go, "It will if everything goes right." But you're playing such risky odds at this point. Exactly. Why would you do that? Yeah. And then you get Vic Fangio on the other side, who I'm a big Vic Fangio fan, but he then not dialing up blitzes on the defensive side of the ball at the end of the game and just kind of trying to play a prevent defense. And just both sides of those coordinators, they didn't seem to have the right play calls down the stretch when you need to have them. And it's for the Eagles fan base, it must be frustrating because you get rid of all your coaches and then you bring in these new coaches, and now
veteran coaches,
veteran coaches,
respected, yes.
And now they are making some calls at the end of games that you just can't really abide by and say, you know, we get it. You can say that the play call wasn't terrible because if he catches it, it's an easy first down and it works perfectly. Yep. But why do you give that opportunity for him to drop it? There's so many variables of the ball comes out wrong, or Saquon slips, anything. The timing gets off, or they just read it and they just call it correctly. And there's a guy there now. Jalen Hurts doesn't. You have Saquon Barkley. You paid all this money for him. You use him in the play, but you don't think he can get 3 yards.
It's questionable. Now I'm with you. It's like that old Daryl K. Royal line, right? It's like that 3 things can happen when you throw the football and 2 of them are bad. That was a situation where you should be listening to the ghost of DKR. Like, maybe we should just run it up the middle. Saquon Barkley he took the blame. He said, quote, "I dropped the ball, let my team down today. Shouldn't have put the defense in that position. If I make the catch, game's over. Relax, get back to my old habits, and just got to go back to work." And he said, they asked him, did he have concerns about the play call? Decision to throw the ball in that spot. He said, no, once I knew it, I thought it was a great play call. I just got to make the catch. And if he makes the catch, it's a brilliant play call. Like that's the difference. If he makes, everybody's like, Kellen Moore, brilliant play call at that time. Nobody expected it. That was amazing. And then he didn't make it. And it's like, Kellen Moore's an idiot. I don't know. He's an imbecile. Why would you do that, Nickel? And like that is essentially, that's what makes you a great coach. The execution of that play call. It's just that simple.
But it's also the concept of if you just run the ball a gap.
No, it's unnecessary risk. It is unnecessary risk. I agree with that. I'm not saying that.
No one's going to say it's a genius play call if you run an A gap, but at the same part, no one is going to get mad at you for it.
Agree. They'll say, you won't get the genius. But he wants the genius tag.
That's
to get the genius tag, you gotta. It's a high risk situation. You want the genius tag. So you're right. Nobody calls you a genius for just going dive and getting 3 yards, but actually won you the game.
You've been dismissed from your job 2 years in a row. You ain't getting the genius tag right now. Just get not an idiot tag.
Hey, he's trying to get it back. You know what I mean? He lost it. He's like, I get the genius tag back. Only way you get it back.
I feel like Bill Sims thought that was a faulty genius tag.
Yeah, that's true. Some people thought it was. Yeah, that's good. That's a good point. That's about prematurely giving the genius tag there. Maybe Jerry Jones gave the genius tag. And everybody just kept along with it. Yeah. Maybe not the proper authority to be giving out genius tags.
Why does this tag say Jimmy Johnson? No, ignore that.
That was the last genius tag he gave out. That's
the only one he's giving out.
Bill Parcells already had his when he got there. So, all right, I don't know if Mike McCarthy has one or not. That's a good one. All right, good stuff there. Yeah, so I'll say this though about the Falcons. I think the Falcons, and I think their next game, actually, it's a very compelling opponent. I have to, because I went and looked at it, and I was like, oh, that would be an interesting matchup. So I've got to go back and see, but I still don't know. Kirk Cousins, to me, is the only X factor here. I think they got great skill, talent on offense. I think the defense is going to come around for him, too. I just don't know what Kirk Cousins are we going to get. If this Kirk Cousins that we got in the second half and that final drive, you get that Kirk Cousins, that's a team that got a shot to win division. I don't know how. Well, now with the Saints and the way they're starting, I don't know if it's a guarantee you're going to win that division.
No, and the Bucs are starting pretty well too.
And the Bucs look good, yeah. So I don't know if I can go in that route, but at least I do think they can be competitive. But it's all about Kirk Cousins, and if he looked like they figured something out in the second half of that game versus Philly.
That one feels a little bit more like the coaching wanted to try some things that Kirk Cousins wasn't
capable of doing,
and then they didn't have enough time in the offseason to really get it ironed out, and they just tried to do it on the fly because they thought he was a veteran quarterback, and you figured out it's just not working, and so they're having to fix it back. They play the Chiefs on Sunday Night Football next week.
That's who it is. I was like, I know it's who knew. I was like, so it's the ultimate test. So you'll know if whatever you're doing is working, if you can compete with the Chiefs. If you know it ain't working, if the Chiefs just run you out of the stadium, then you're like, all right, we got to go start.
And the Chiefs now, Pacheco out, they believe 6 to 8 weeks at least.
Hey, you guys know how I feel about Carson Steele. I was pumping him up in the preseason. I'm telling you, I know they I believe he's going to end up getting a lot of that work. A lot
He
of that
is.
share.
The rumor is they're bringing Kareem Hunt on Tuesday to see if he will come back and fit in.
Still has some of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Talk about a full circle journey.
Yeah.
Coming right, Kareem Hunt. I finally all the
Nice.
way back. What we talking? What I mean? How long ago was that when he was
It was a
originally
little
with?
while ago.
It was a long time ago. I don't even know.
For
know
a
what kind
running
of
back,
player
it was
Kareem
like
Hunt is.
six careers
Yeah.
ago.
Yeah, the running back years. Those are, yeah, you're right. It might as well be a decade in running back years, man, since he's been with the Kansas City Chiefs. All right, that's good stuff there. We'll come back. We'll talk some more NFL because I've noticed a couple of trends that have to do with quarterbacks that I want to get into. So we probably can address that next hour and get into it when we go into Rod's rant of the day. But next segment, we got to hear from Steve Sarkisian talking about his Longhorn football team, the number one ranked team in the country. We'll get to that coming up next segment. Hear from Steve Sarkisian and talk some Texas football. All of that and more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers coming back on the Horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get to some Texas football conversation. Later on, I might get into it here a little bit, but I've been researching how the offense might change a little bit with Arch at the helm rather than Quinn. So I want to get into a little bit of that at one point. Longhorns are a 44.5-point favorite over ULM, their upcoming opponent, and the belief is that Arch Manning is going to end up starting that game. I'm sure the folks out there making the lines know that, and they still made it damn near a 45-point line for Texas, or at least a 45-point favorite for Longhorns. So really impressed, the number one team in the country, which we'll talk about here. Also, talking about the Longhorns. I want to talk more about the defense. I don't think we've given the defense enough props. So we'll get into that too coming up a little bit later on. I want to talk about the Texas defense. There are some standout performers that are getting some love from places like Pro Football Focus, but also what guys like Colin Simmons are doing and Jadae Barron are doing. So we'll get into that and review the defense a little bit. I think we talked a lot about the offense, Arch Manning, quarterback position, wide receiver position, running back position. So we'll jump to the defensive side of the ball a little bit, but and talk about some more of the Johnny Nansen influence that I've noticed watching film the Texas defense. But let's hear from Steve Sarkisian right now about the Texas team staying focused at being, obviously playing to a standard, but now playing to that standard is the number one team in the country. That is the standard right now for Texas football, because that's what they are. Here's Sark talking about those expectations.
Well, I think now more than ever, and I don't want to take anything away from the polls because of the 12-team playoff. It really doesn't matter, and we say it all the time as a team. It's not really what other people think of us. It's about what we do, and we've got to perform, and we got to prepare to perform, because the way this is set up, back in the day, the polls were huge because the polls dictated who got to play for a national championship and ultimately who won the national championship. Nowadays, you got to go earn it. And so I think it's good to show that, hey, what we're capable of. But at the end of the day, we're going to have to go earn this thing. And the mission is far, far from over. We've got a long way to go. So again, our guys, I don't even think they'd talk about it. You'll bring it up to them when they get up here, but I don't think, like, they're not sitting in the locker room talking about it. They're focused on what they need to do to improve and giving each other a hard time about stuff from the game, because that's what you do in the locker room. They're probably making fun of Ethan Burke's dive into the end zone and so on and so forth. But that's what teams do. I just don't think they're consumed with it.
All right, there's Sark. Team handling the expectations pretty well, being the number one team in the country. How are they handling the arch hype, right? The arch madness, arch mania that's taken over the scene nationally. My wife said she was watching the Today Show and they brought it up, and I was like, "Damn, the Today Show?" She's like, "Yeah, brought it up on the Today Show." Wild. But it made sense. Texas was obviously, number one team in the country and the Arch Manning, so still made sense, but still, that's just mind blowing. But I think you're gonna have more of that, where that story transcends from the sports page to the front page. But here's
one of the most recognizable names in football.
Yeah. They just want to bring up that it was a Manning and then Texas. They're trying to combine all of it. Manning, Texas, and the college number one team in the country. And you know what? Good for. I think you'll get more of that as he's starting right now. And Texas is also really, really good. Texas wasn't really good. I don't think it mattered, but that Texas is number one team in the country. And there's a Manning starting this week. On top of that, people are going to pay attention. So here is start talking about how the team and how they handle this media storm that is surrounding Arch Manning.
I don't do anything. Arch is just another guy on our team. And the reason I'm able to do that is because that's who Arch is every day. Arch he's a selfless teammate. He cares about the guys on the team. He cares about Quinn. They've got a great relationship. He works his tail off. He wants to play good football for them because he knows how hard everybody's working. So I literally don't address it with him. I don't address it with the team. He's just part of the team, and I think that's been the approach. If you even go back to the recruiting process, it was never about the name. It was about the player and the ability and the parents and so on and so forth. And so that's made it actually pretty easy that we don't have to address it. And I think from Quinn's perspective, I think Quinn, he just wants to keep playing, nobody wants to have to come out of a game because you get injured. But I think if you ask Quinn today, he's fired up for Arch because he knows how hard Arch has been working. I mean, I go back to this all the time. You all were there for that first spring game. He didn't play very good. And so the growth that he's shown and the ability to work at his craft, there's a real level of appreciation, I think, from Quinn to Arch, but also Arch to Quinn, because I know Arch has been there supporting Quinn through his journey as well. So that's the sign of a great room and a sign of a good team.
All right, yeah, that's start talking about the Arch madness, and it's easy to deal with because of Arch's personality, and that makes sense because he's not on social media. I mean, what young person doesn't like to engage on social media? I mean, he's got an account, but he's never on there at all, and that does show that he's built a little differently.
Yeah. How are you gonna remove all your team logos and everything to show you're unhappy if you don't even have the social media to begin with.
Exactly. No, serious. I go check his social medias. I think he has tweeted and I don't know, posted like just a few times. Like doing it's always something like official. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
like I think I think if you go to his Twitter, like the last couple of posts are the thing where he made the deal with Panini for the card,
exactly.
and then the ESPN college college football NCAA college football game. That commercial.
Oh yes, you're right.
I think that's like the two posts are basically commercials.
Yes, exactly. Like so that makes sense that he's more low key than you would think. Yeah, you remember he lost his like his student ID a couple of times.
Yes.
And now the guys in the stands have you seen this?
The banners
they have
and
the
stuff?
big blanket banner, with his ID on it. Because he's lost it. I think that's fantastic. Anyway, let's talk about some of the young because that's what to me is so exciting about watching this team right now. Is because as a Longhorn fan, there's some longevity and sustainability to this thing because the young guys look so good. Like that's why, and that I remember that being the case when we were 11-1 in 2001, but started bringing in dudes like Derek Johnson and Ced Benson and Roy Williams, and I thought to myself, those young dudes are better than all of us, and we're pretty damn good. Like we're good. Like we all go into the league and playing, but them dudes, the Huff Daddies, the Derek Johnsons, the Ced Bensons, the Roy Williams, and we were looking at them going, dude, those dudes, they gonna be better than us. And then thus the guys that were after them were better than them or as good as they were, and then that's how you win a national title. I remember witnessing it on the 40 acres myself, and I do think that's why you shouldn't be freaking out about this team and really the way it's built and the way Sark has constructed it, because we're at the point now where those young dudes, they look as good, if not better, than all the veterans, and the veterans are still all NFL players, good players too. Like your Colin Simmons and your Ryan Wingo, to me, they might be your most impactful players at their position, and they're freshmen. Mm-hmm. Right? Arch Manning may be some people say potentially a higher upside than Quinn Ewers. And, you're talking about a guy that's still young, not even inexperienced, not even had a start under his belt, about to get his first one. That's the promising thing to me. Like, that's where you start to get giddy as a Longhorn fan, and you should be. Because baby Rhino might end up leading you in rushing, and he's a freshman. Like, you're a young guy. You're going to be really good because you're really deep. But your young players may be some of your best players, like your babies. Like, you know what I mean? That's amazing. And one of them is Colin Simmons. Don't even have his grown man body yet, but he's out there playing like one. Still in his teenage boy body. He looked, for some of y'all like, man, that's a grown man. No, not yet. Trust me, when he gets it, he's going to be a problem. But here's start talking about him because he's heated up lately. Last 2 games, 2 sacks in the last 2 games. He's got 9. He's got QB pressures. He's got 9 QB pressures. 28% win rate. He's been a freak lately, and I think he's a prodigy. So he's just getting better and better the more he plays. Here's start talking about the ascent of the young Colin Simmons.
Yeah, no, I think Colin has steadily improved. From where he was in spring ball to where he was in training camp, to where he was in week 1, to where he is now going into week 4. He has steadily improved his craft. And a lot of that comes with knowing what to do and having confidence in what to do. Clearly, he's an impactful player when he gets to rush the passer. Our goal for him is to obviously make him the most complete player that we can make him. And so having the ability to play the run and what that looks like so that he can be a real every down player that way and impact the game because he has the skill set to do that. It's kind of a little reminiscent of where Anthony Hill was maybe a year ago of what Anthony was doing, his ability to rush the passer. But then as he's grown and now we see what Anthony is for us, he's getting 11 and 12 tackles a game and, sideline to sideline and those types of things. So Colin's got a bright future. He's off to a good start. But more importantly, I just like the work ethic and the focus that he has of trying to improve and get better.
Yeah, I mean, getting better. At an accelerated rate, it would seem, for Colin Simmons. And another guy is getting better every time he touches football is Ryan Wingo. I went back and tracked Ryan Wingo's targets. He's got 8 touches. He's averaging over 31 yards a touch. I only count one play that's not an explosive play. Where he's got 7 targets, he's caught them all. But I only counted one play where he caught, I think it was a 9-yard pass that wasn't an explosive play, and the rest of the plays to him have been explosive plays, like 15 yards or more.
That's nuts.
It's silly how good he is. You got to play him more. I think Sark understands he's got to play more. He's easily your top 3 best wide receivers right now. It is what it is. I think Golden and Bond are probably a little bit better, but only because they're veterans and seasoned and a little bit more refined. But he'll get there too. Here's Sark talking about the transition of Ryan Wingo from high school to being one of the most explosive weapons right now on the team for Texas.
What's interesting about Ryan, he's got a unique skill set. You don't the size, the speed, the range. You don't find that every day. But what he's brought from day one has been this real sense of humility. He knows he's not a finished product. He works really hard every day. He keeps his mouth shut. He just works. It's not look at me, Ryan Wingo. It's what do I need to do to improve Ryan Wingo? And so the result of it's been, I don't know if I've ever been around a guy through 3 games that has had the explosive play ability that he's possessed. It's been every game. He's created explosive plays, whether it's catching post routes, catching a short route, turning it into a long play, whether it's getting the reverse, creating a long play. But he'll tell you, Coach Jackson will tell you, he's not a finished product, right? We're still working on a lot of the details in his game, but man, he definitely has a very, very bright future.
Yeah, I mean, his touches 9, 6 explosive plays. Consider anything over at least a passing play of 15 yards or more. Running plays, some people knock it down to 10 or 12 yards as an explosive play, but I try to keep it at 15 for passes. Mac Brown always had 10-yard rushes at explosive play, so that's kind of in my mind what explosive plays are. But everybody's got different definition. Either way, chunk yard display. His targets 9 yards, 16 yards, 15 yards, 30 yards, 16 yards, 36 yards, 75 yards. His one rush, 55 yards. It's only one target he's gotten, and by the way, he's caught them all, where he hasn't created an explosive play. Yeah, you got to play him more. And he's one of Arch's favorite targets. He and Jonte Cook. I believe out of his 8 targets, 7 targets, 8 touches, 7 targets, 4 are from Arch. Arch knows. Arch has been throwing to him in practice. Like, hey man, this dude making me look good. I'll just wait for Ryan to clear. I'll just buy some time and wait for him to get open. So there you go. Let's start talking about the young guys. We got some other Sark sound that we'll get to. Him talking about the coaches, the defensive coaches, talking about Quinn and Arch a little bit more as well. So we'll get to some more of that sound coming up. But first, let's get into the topic for the Big Fat Poll of the day and your musically themed day of the week on the other side, right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Low Horn Rod Davis coming back on the horn.
Back on Rodcast here on a Tuesday morning, and that means it's a top of the charts Tuesday where I will play songs that were number one on this day in history. Starting off with a little of the Animals here on a top of the charts Tuesday. Let's get over to the big fat poll of the day. Text lines open 512-447-3776, and we'll get this posted up on X at the Horn ATX.
Patrick's Big Fat Poll of the Day on the Horn.
Big Fat Poll of the Day today. Let's talk about the Cowboys. And we saw, on Sunday, we saw that there's some issues with this Cowboys team on both sides of the football, but they are kind of related. So simple to answer question today. Which is a bigger worry for the Cowboys? Running offense or running defense?
Oh, rush defense to me. Yeah. Because I've seen them. They got to get Jake Ferguson back because that was obvious they needed him.
Yeah.
They can't afford to lose weapons on offense. They don't have enough depth. So when they lose any weapon, or if Brandon Cooks is not having a good game or whatever, it can be a dire situation for them because they don't have a running game at all. But I've seen them be able to score points without it. Defensively, based on the trends that I pointed out yesterday in the discussion we had, the blueprint on how to beat the Cowboys is clear.
It is.
You can keep that offense off the field. You ain't got to worry about the offense if you run the football and run power sets out of 21 personnel and run with that. Try to somehow replicate, if you don't already have it, the Shanahan zone blocking system. Then you got it. Then you got them. You can beat the Cowboys. And don't have to worry about Dak.
Yeah, I think that there's the reason why I think this is somewhat of a question is because I don't know if the Cowboys don't have the defensive talent to be able to stop the run. I feel like they had their talent. There's enough talent. I know they need better nose tackles, and that's going to be an issue. But there should be the talent on this defense. They have the linebackers. They have the ends. They have everybody that should be able to make this run defense stop. It's scheme to me. It's scheme in how they're being put together, that they're really trying to focus on the pass a lot more. They want to focus on pass rush and pass defense and in the secondary, so they don't guard it well. But they have the players, so I think it's fixable in that. In the running game, I don't think they have the players. I don't think you can scheme to make it to where you are a effective running team. I think you can make it. You're not a terrible running team, but I don't know if you can ever make it to where if it's 3rd and short, 3rd and 3 in a game like last night, you feel confident running the football.
Yeah. I agree with that, by the way. I don't think they have the pieces to to execute a good running game. But I will say the offensive line could boost the running game because you don't have a playmaker at running back. But I don't know if that – because they're still gelling because they have a lot of young players on our line. We just talked about how they just overhauled it. They just reinvented, if you will, the offensive line in their last few drafts. So that could help and boost it. And I don't know. I just think Dak and the offensive pieces are good enough in a passing era to be able to, score some points. I just think they won't have a chance, and they'll be limited in possessions if a team decides, no, we're just going to line up and run it against the Cowboys. Power run game, down here run game. So either way, you're right. I mean, it could be either or, because then you can just say, I want to help my defense by running the football. I won't expose them as much. Yeah. And we can control the clock more and control the game. I think it's more their rush defense is more of a dire situation. But you're right, it could be either or.
I agree. I think right now I think the rushing defense is I just think it's a more fixable problem.
I do think you can. Yes, I agree with that too.
I think that there is ways to fix it. Yeah. I think you can have, you can go in and start to try and game plan that. And if it's not, then don't re-sign Micah Parsons, trade him, because he's not, if he doesn't find a way to start defending the run. And I know he came out yesterday and basically said not everybody gave 100%, and that's why they couldn't guard the run.
Oh my God.
And you're like, Micah, you had 3 tackles in the game, dude. You can't say anything.
Yeah. Why would you even speak on that? Micah, don't speak on it. See, this is the problem. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. So he came out and made it bad. It was an effort thing, and that the guys weren't, and I don't think that's the case. I think that they're just not necessarily scheming. I think you have to play Overshawn more. I don't know why you didn't play him. I know you like to play him in the pass rush, but
they like to play him against teams that that throw the football more, have a running quarterback, stuff like that. Because he's Cleveland, right? Played against Deshaun as a spy a lot of the time.
But at the same part, he's dynamic. He can find the hole and go attack guys and tackle. I would try him more than they tried him in that game. Especially when you realize nothing is working. But I think that is a more fixable thing. That in the running game on the other side, it's just no one's really doing anything. And Donald again is okay, but they clearly don't feel comfortable playing him and running him 15 times a game.
Well, and it just hasn't. That running game is just not effective at all.
It's not, but Donald at least is averaging a respectable average, but he's running the ball 3 to 4 times a game. So that average doesn't mean anything at 3 to 4 times a game. You have to average it 15, in 15 carries, and then you can say that's a real average. So I just don't know. I don't know if you don't make a trade or sign somebody or bring somebody in to help this run game, that it's not going to hurt you down the stretch when you can't run clock at all because you have to keep throwing. And then we know Brandon Cooks is, doesn't normally make it through a season. You already got Jake Ferguson. You saw how much that affected the passing game. That one injury to your tight end affected the passing game. I just don't know. CeeDee Lamb to Dak Prescott's great, but if that's the entire offense at a certain point,
it's gonna be most of the offense. Yeah, it really is. That's most of the Cowboys' offense, and that's why they can't afford to lose Jake Ferguson. Jake Ferguson's a really good tight end, and without Jake Ferguson, that offense is a little different. So I don't know the diagnosis on Jake Ferguson, but he's one of their critical pieces. They need him. They can't afford to lose guys, especially like you said, they don't have a running game. So here's Rico Dowdle and Ezekiel Elliott. Their rushing totals. Good. This is terrible. Through 2 games, Ezekiel Elliott has 16 rushes for 56 yards and a touchdown. Rico Dowdle 15 for 55 yards. So nobody's averaging even 4 yards a carry here.
Yeah,
and Deuce Vaughn's had 3 rushes for 15 yards. So that's through 2 games.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Abysmal.
It is. It's really not good.
That's the worst. You might have the worst. We said they might have the worst running back room in the NFL, but those numbers back it up. Yeah, nobody's even averaging 4 yards a carry here.
No, and that's with them not having to worry about the run that much. Defenses don't have to load up and try and stop your run. They can go back and really try and slow down. Basically, you can build your entire defense around CeeDee Lamb at this point and say, we're going to make Brandon Cooks and Jalen Tolbert beat us, and then Jake Ferguson, because we don't have to worry about the running game. And that's becomes a problem.
They knew this. We all saw this happening. We knew this was going to be the case. That this was, right? To me, this was so obvious that this was going to, materialize during the regular season in this way, with them having a deficiency at the running back position, therefore a deficiency in the running game. And I don't know how they didn't address it.
And now technically they have Dalvin Cook that's going to, I guess, at some point get called up to the main roster. But
didn't address it.
The fact that he's already not there,
means that's crazy. I can't believe that. I think what does Dak have? Dak has 3 rushes for 15 yards, so at least Dak's averaging.
He's got the Deuce Vaughn numbers.
Well, Dak's right now your highest yards per carry for a rusher in the backfield.
Yeah, that's
at least he's averaging 5 yards per rush. Rest of your guys ain't averaging that. You ain't even got guys averaging 4 yards per rush.
Crazy. So
the Cowboys, they're pretty much a one-dimensional offense. So all right, that's good stuff there. I'll go with running game, but either way, I don't think you can be wrong here in your choice. It's just all about which way you want to see things, because both are bad. But I agree with Patrick though. One is more correctable. One is, I think, can be not easily, but more. One has a path.
What has a lot more talent on that side of the football?
Yeah, there's a path to fix the defense. I don't know if there's a path to fix the running game on offense.
I don't know.
You might just be what you are there. All right, we come back. We'll talk NFL. We'll get into the Cowboys a little bit, but also I want to talk about a trend that I noticed just doing some research about the NFL. I don't know if we've seen the quarterback position look like this in a really long time in the NFL, and I'll tell you why. When we come back, we'll discuss it right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis on Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Babers coming back on the horn. Hey, what's up, folks? Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers here. Let me tell you about my friend, Dr. Greg Eckert. He is fantastic. He and his team, they are the best. And I owe them a huge debt of gratitude because I went there initially for just a cleaning, for a checkup. And they're so thorough in their checkups that they actually found that my wisdom teeth were growing in sideways. And I was on the verge potentially of a dental disaster. And it was going to be a dire situation. They acted quickly, made sure that I was well informed and educated about the process, got the procedure scheduled, and got everything done. I was back at work within a couple of days, as you guys know. And now my dental health and dental hygiene have never been better, thanks to Dr. Eckert and his team. So if you have dental anxiety, so maybe you haven't been to the dentist in a while, and that was the case for me, and then maybe you got something that's bothering you. Maybe it's serious, maybe it's pretty routine. No matter what it is, Dr. Eckert and his team are fantastic, and you're in really good hands. Hopefully for you, it's not as serious having all of your wisdom teeth extracted. But if it is, you can trust Dr. Eckert and his team. But no matter if it's general dentistry or teeth whitening or dentures or porcelain crowns, veneers, dental implants, full mouth reconstruction, even root canal therapy, whatever it takes to ensure you're getting the best quality dental care available, that's what Dr. Eckert and his team are all about. And right now, because his team, and they're always on the cutting edge of the technological advances in dentistry, they have the ability to give you a brand new smile in just one day, permanently secured to your dental implants. No time spent without teeth. You'll get temporary fixtures until they can complete your permanent smile, and you'll smile again with confidence and eat freely without pain or discomfort. We're talking about a lifelike permanent solution. So if you've been told your teeth need to be replaced, or you have dentures, or you've been told you need dentures, just call Dr. Eckert. Don't freak out to learn about this revolutionary alternative to dentures. It's a brand new smile in just one day. It's a complimentary consultation, which means you got nothing to lose but so much to gain, because a really, guys, a confident smile can truly change your life, and Dr. Eckert wants to change your life for the better. So give him a call today, 512-345-3166. That's 512-345-3166, or visit dreckert.com. And right now, if you tell them you heard it here on the Horn, all Horn listeners will get free Zoom whitening with their treatment. Dr. Eckert always hooking you up. Dreckert.com, DRUECKERT.com. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a Top of the Charts Tuesday. That's when my co-host, the Idealionaire Patrick Davis, plays jams that reached the top of the Billboard charts on this day in history. So we appreciate all of his efforts there. Also appreciate his efforts when it comes to coming up with the topic for the big fat poll of the day, which we'll get that posted for you on X at the Horn ATX. Patrick, what is the topic for the big fat poll of the day?
Big fat poll today. Which is a bigger worry for the Cowboys, the rushing offense or rushing defense?
Yep. Yeah. I'm a defensive guy, so I guess I'm a little bit biased here.
I mean,
so
it's a problem.
Rush defense. Yeah. No, I went. The only reason I'll say rush defense, and you're right, because the rush defense, I do think it's fixable. There at least is a path to remedy that issue. It's now something that you've had under multiple defensive coordinators, though.
Yeah.
And guys who are respected.
No, I get that.
Like
and
good ones, like not just scrubs. Like, Dan Quinn, it was an issue for him with the Cowboys, and now it's an issue for Mike Zimmer under the Cowboys, dealing with the power run game, downhill running game, 2 multi-back sets, power packages, and the Shanahan zone blocking run scheme. If you got either and or those concepts combined together, Cowboys have had real issues. It's said once is a coincidence, twice you didn't throw out there. It's like, all right, maybe there's something going on here. 3 times, that's a pattern. 4 is a trend. 5 is a problem. And you got like five or 6 losses, 7 losses like that, where all the teams pretty much leaned on those principles and concepts to beat you. There's a blueprint now.
No, and I mean, I think I'm with you too that I think there is a case to be made that it's worse on the rushing defense on the fact of, you can still choose to throw the ball and be effective offensively, even if without a running game. Now, it may hurt you in certain games, but this is now pretty much an every game thing where everyone knows just run the ball. Just run the ball on the Cowboys. And there's nothing you can really do because they're just going to keep running it on you over and over and over again, week after week now. Because why? I mean, I know. Again, I'll say I think the Giants in a couple weeks probably won't, but that's because they're the Giants. But
true. They can't do it.
But most of these teams are going. I mean, you play Derrick Henry next week. You figure they're gonna lean on Derrick Henry, right?
If they don't, I'd be shocked if they don't test the Cowboys' rush defense. That would be damn near coaching malpractice if they don't at this point.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, but I think the Cowboys fans and the running back issue was the same last season. So I've almost kind of just resigned myself to the fact that the Cowboys don't prioritize running back.
But here's the thing: it wasn't the same last season because you did have Tony Pollard last season, and he was hurt and coming off an injury. But you had a guy that had the talent. If you could get healthy for the playoffs, then you had an actual running back. Now, he wasn't the best guy, but he was an actual starting running back in the NFL. You could see him as one.
He wasn't, but I said before the season, if you count on Tony Pollard coming off that injury to be the same back that he was prior, then that's a dang coaching mistake.
No,
and that's what I'm coming from that standpoint, where
100%.
You should have invested in it then, because Cowboys' hope is not a strategy. And once again, they were hoping he was going to be the back that he was. That's a miscalculation. No, of course, he's not going to be the same back he was. He's coming off the injury. Now, if he is great, that's found money. But why would you go into the season with that as your only option? And I think that's kind of me. That's the philosophy overall. That's for the Cowboys, that MO that's getting them in trouble. They just, for some reason, have not addressed running back, and I don't get it.
No, I don't.
They don't address it. They won't address it, period. Just address it, whether it be free agency, whether it be via trade, in the draft. Just address running back, and they refuse to address it.
No, I agree.
Years.
And
that's the point.
No, so I believe me, I argued this plenty on my shows, was that last season about the Cowboys and running, to the fact that people got pretty annoyed that I kept doing it. But I'm with you. I thought that relying on Tony Pollard, expecting him to come back, was crazy. I'm saying the difference was, at least then there was hope. There's zero hope in this run game. That's my difference, is you signed a guy who was washed 2 seasons ago and hope that somehow the guy you had to cut because he wasn't a good enough running back to be for you 2 years ago, somehow in 2 years got good enough to be a starting running back in the NFL again.
Doesn't make sense.
That was what your idea was.
Doesn't make sense.
And Rico Dottle, who couldn't get the job done last season. It was okay, but didn't carry it when Tony Pollard. So you knew that experiment. You could believe but the problem was there at least was hope last year. There's not even that this season in the running game.
Yeah.
There's no one that you can look at and think,
right.
oh man, maybe this guy will break out and be a real feature back for us. That doesn't exist.
Nope. I agree. No, trust me. We said it going into the season. This is the worst running back room talent-wise in the NFL, and I think that is starting to show. I really do, and I'm with you. I thought, they'll trade for somebody. They'll pick the Dalvin Cook thing is. Some people say that's them addressing the running back situation. That's the least you could do. That is the least. You literally went on and did the least you could do by picking up Dalvin Cook. Come on, guys.
Yeah,
that's the least they could do. So no, it's a problem either way for the Cowboys, and I don't even know which one's worse. I'm gonna go defense just because I've been kind of fixated on that, and I'm a defensive guy. But you've made the case on offense too that it it can be just as debilitating for the Cowboys, and at least defensively there is hope. As what you said, no hope on the offensive side, and hope is still not a strategy, Cowboys. But oftentimes.
And again,
that's what they use.
I'll put this in there. The same reason it would be tougher on them than some other teams, and it was the same reason tough on the Texans now. If your goal is Super Bowl or bust, you can't have glaring, just blatant deficiencies. Yeah. And that's the problem is, yes, the Cowboys will still win plenty of games this season. They'll still be a good team, but I will say that, honestly, we say that, and the Chiefs just did it.
They just did it at wide receiver. They just did it. You know what I mean? They're the exception. I agree with you, but they just did it, and they're the exception because they have the best quarterback on the planet and one of the greatest of all time. They're the exception. They literally, I remember because I said the same thing at the beginning of the season last year. I was like, with a wide receiver room like that, there's no way they're going to be able to win the Super Bowl. That wide receiver room is too bad. I was like, and I thought it would improve. It didn't improve. It was still the worst wide receiving core in the NFL when they got to the Super Bowl. It really was.
It was
led the NFL in drops. But it was pretty bad. It was bad.
Worse, but
that's true. It was one of the worst in the NFL. Like they led the NFL in drops. I'll just say that. All right. So if it depends on what their definition of worst is. They led the NFL drops. Yeah. When you got at least the Giants wide receivers, they got Daniel Jones as an excuse. Exactly. You got Patrick freaking Mahomes. You got the best play caller and play designer in football, Andy Reid, and you're still bad. So that's why it's worse. It's worse because Daniel Jones made you part of the reason you're bad. All right. You had Patrick Mahomes. You got no excuse to be bad. Okay. With that deficiency, they still freaking won the Super Bowl. And I was like, there's no way they're going to win it with that group. They did. Yeah. So most teams can't. They can. Yes. They can. They've started a different left tackle in every Super Bowl Patrick Mahomes has played in, ladies and gentlemen. They can. Nobody else can, but they can. The second most valuable position in football is wide receiver or left tackle, and they've won the Super Bowl with deficiencies at both.
Crazy.
Doesn't seem unfair. Actually,
it makes it seem unfair.
It doesn't seem fair. But no, you're right. The Cowboys, you can't do that. And the Texans, I don't know if they have a deficiency that glaring. So I think they're okay. They just got to continue to get better. But yeah, the Cowboys, I'm with you. They got two glaring Shakespearean flaws right now. You can't win a Super Bowl with a flaw unless you're Patrick Mahomes.
Yep.
And the Chiefs. You can't win a Super Bowl like that. All right. So good stuff there. That's the topic for the Big Fat Poll today. Let's get the horn headlines in, and then we'll come back and I'll tell you this crazy time to be a quarterback in the NFL. I'm observing this right now, this trend, I should say, happening with quarterbacks in the league, and I cannot believe it. I'll share it with you on the other side. But first, let's get updated, let's get educated, and let's get informed on all the top stories of the day with Patrick Davis and the Horn Headlines.
All right, your Horn Headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. In the MLB, the Astros dropped their opening game with the Padres 3-1 last night. Spencer Arrighetti was able to get through 5 innings, giving up 2 runs, but the Astros offense couldn't get anything going against Yu Darvish. Hunter Brown gets the call today, trying to even the series against Michael King in San Diego. The Rangers begin their series with the Blue Jays today, with Nathan Eovaldi getting the start. This will also begin the Rangers' last homestand of the season, playing the next 7 at home, where they are 7 games above 500 this season. And in the NFL, the Falcons snuck out a 22-21 victory over the Eagles on Monday Night Football. A Drake London touchdown with 34 seconds left got the lead for the Falcons, and Jalen Hurts threw a pick to seal the game. And that is your Horn Headlines.
All right, thank you, Patrick, for the horn headlines. Okay, so I was just looking at NFL like standings and stats, started doing some research. Ladies and gentlemen, I looked at the passing grades, the Pro Football Focus passing grades, the passer rating for the NFL, and QBR. You're do you know who's leading all three? At the top of the rankings in Pro Football Focus passing grade, passer rating, and QBR.
Can I take a guess?
Yeah.
Sam Darnold.
That's a damn good guess, Patrick. Because I can tell you right now, Sam Darnold, I'll tell you where he's ranked at all of them because that's such a good guess. He is third in Pro Football Focus passing grade. He is fifth right now in passer rating. And he is fifth in QBR.
Okay.
Well, actually tied for fourth with QBR.
Okay.
That's a good guess, though. It is because that's part of this take is that
yes.
What the hell is going on at quarterback right now in the NFL? Because he's part of it. It's like what Sam Darnold's having a resurgence, and we've talked about these quarterbacks who have this kind of circuitous route these days. We've seen this happen with Geno Smiths of the world and Baker Mayfields of the world and Jared Goffs of the world. But we may be watching another kind of I would say these kind of reincarnations really of these quarterbacks where they kind of can reinvent themselves in different systems or different places, different times and circumstances. I don't know if that makes them a franchise quarterback, stopgap quarterback, whatever for the time being. Ladies and gentlemen, Derek Carr. Ladies and gentlemen, Derek Carr is leading all quarterbacks in the Pro Football Focus passing grade, in passer rating, and in QBR. By the way, second in Pro Football Focus passing grade and second in QBR, and right now fourth in passer rating, Kyler Murray. And right now balling out. Sam Darnold, we talked about him. Great guess. Third in Pro Football Focus passing grade, and fifth in the passer rating, tied for fourth in QBR. And then how about this? Justin Fields. Pro Football Focus passing grade. He's fifth. He's fifth there, and he also ends up, if you go look at it, and like I said, that was shocking enough for me that he was fifth in their Pro Football Focus passing grade. Geno Smith is playing really well too. Geno Smith makes it into the top 4 of QBR. He's also top 10 in passer rating. That's not a shock because last year he had a really good year too. Baker Mayfield is second in passer rating, and he is currently sixth, or at least I should say fifth in QBR. Baker Mayfield's balling. Like it's just you haven't seen. These are some unusual suspects usually to be at the top of the efficiency rankings for quarterbacks. Derek Carr, Kyler Murray, Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield. These now. I mean, Sam Darnold's got a better passer rating than C.J. Stroud. I don't know how long this holds, but I do think it's interesting that the NFL right now, the quarterback rankings, or I say efficiency ratings, they look very different than they have in years past. And I think it's something because something's going on in the league right now, right? I was listening to Mina Kimes on NFL matchup, I believe it is, or I believe it's NFL matchup show they have, where she talked about how they're playing, at least in week 1, they play 2 high safeties 60% of the time, like 60% of the time. That is, I've never seen a number that high, honestly. And she admitted, she's like, that's the highest number since they've been keeping track of it, which has forced the quarterbacks, a lot of them, to become, a lot of your favorite quarterbacks and my favorite quarterbacks, to become check down Charlies. Average depth of target now 6.9 yards, at least for the first 2 weeks of the season. Guys, the average depth of target in 2019 was 7.9 yards. Your average yards per reception in 2024 so far is 10.4 yards. In 2019, it was 11.4 yards. That's a whole yard difference in a 5-year span. Yard difference. That's a yard drop in the average depth of target and in yards per reception. If you look at passing yards per game per team, you're below 200. You're at 193.2 passing yards per game. That's the lowest since 2015. And hell, there's no way you're lower than that. I can't think of a time where you start dropping below 200 yards, passing yards per game per team. The sack rate is really high. The sack rate in the first through the first 2 weeks is 7.8% sack rate. It is the highest for the start of NFL season in the 2000s. Haven't seen a sack rate this high. Sack rate is really high. Obviously, quarterbacks are throwing it, underneath and short a lot more. Quick game a lot more. Average depth of target now is starting to shrink too, and that teams are starting to run the football now. Teams are running the football more than ever. I mean, think about how much teams are now running the ball. We just watched the Texans run for the most yards and give Joe Mixon 30 rushes in week 1. We just watched the Saints and run all over the Cowboys in week 2 and just line up and run the rock in week 2. So I think part of these very unusual quarterback rankings is also is somehow correlated and connected to how the quarterback position, or at least how they're playing the quarterback position, is starting to shift. The way that quarterbacks are now starting to, I think that just taking what the defense is giving them, and they're deciding to work smarter, not harder. Why am I going to throw the football downfield when I can just check it down, or I can throw it underneath and get 7 easy yards? And I think now teams are handing off the football a lot more too. So I don't know if the product, like you can look at passing touchdowns, you've had the fewest touchdown passes through 2 weeks, or second fewest touchdown passes through 2 weeks. You had 67 in 2006. You've had 69 in 2024. And that's in the 32 team era, since they've had 32 teams. So the passing game has been severely affected by these defensive adjustments and these evolutionary adaptations on defense. And I think they're just playing the quarterback position differently. And maybe that's leading to teams, or at least some of these other quarterbacks, who are now rising up in the efficiency rankings, because maybe some of the guys like Joe Burrow and some of the guys like, Patrick Mahomes and your CJ Stroud, Josh Allen is still relatively high up on these lists here early on. But maybe that's why they haven't been able to accumulate the numbers and the productivity that they were in years prior, because teams are now deciding we're going to be extreme in our too high safety approach and taking away big plays and taking away the vertical passing game. We're going to invite you to throw it underneath. We're going to invite you to run the football. We're going to give it to you. I'm going to give you the light box. I'm going to give it to you. And what do we say about the field goal kickers? Seeing more and more field goal kickers. It feels like more and more, there's more kicking going on in the first couple of weeks too. Am I the only one that feels that way? We know they're running the football more in the first 2 weeks. We know they're throwing the football shorter than they have ever before. I feel like they're kicking more field goals too.
I mean, I'll
go do that research.
We just saw the first team to ever score 3 touchdowns and didn't allow a touchdown to lose because of field goals. Yeah, right. We just talked about how it seems like now they're kicking from further away. Like, wow, 50-yarders are not unusual anymore. It's like, no, 50-yarders are very common. No,
50-plus yarders are very common. So I don't know. I feel like I don't know if this is something that is going to change again, or if this is kind of foreshadowing how the season's going to go. But we'll see. I'll keep up with the trends. But some of your quarterbacks, some of the kind of the stopgap quarterbacks, or some of the quarterbacks who have not necessarily been highly sought after or highly celebrated, they're having great starts to the season. Really good. I did not expect to see that. All right. As another trend that I want to, speaking of quarterbacks, another trend that has to do with NFL quarterbacks that I think is related to the numbers I just gave you about the defensive, adaptations of the two high safeties, forcing quarterbacks to become check down Charlies, forcing offensive coordinators to focus more on the run game and run the football more than ever. I think in addition to that, there is also this trend that is now at, I don't know, it's not its peak, but it's definitely higher than it's ever been, because I think it's going to continue to increase. I think you'll see more and more of this trend in the NFL for years to come. And I think this year it may be affecting the offensive numbers that you're seeing, the running numbers we're seeing. And I'll talk about that on the other side when we go back from Rod's rant of the day. Let's do that on the other side. This is the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers, coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get into a little Rod's rant of the day. I want to get into this this trend that I noticed And I think it's adding, or at least it is aiding in this adjustment that we're seeing from offenses of running the football more and deciding they're going to take what the defense is giving them, take these short underneath stuff. And they've really curtailed the vertical passing game in the NFL, at least for the first couple of weeks. And this was the case a little bit last year, but now things have gotten a little bit extreme. Also, something that has, I think, hit a peak, but I think it'll still, I think, push the trend even further in the next couple of years is quarterback scrambles and quarterback design runs. If you go back to 2009, it's kind of where they're going back here. There were 225 designed runs called for quarterbacks in the league. And this is from ESPN's tracking data. That doesn't include scrambles or sneaks, although, that would add to it even more. But last season, that number had more than doubled to 590 design runs. There were 37 design runs for quarterbacks in week 1 alone. That would mean you're on pace for around 629 designed runs for QBs this season. That's a new high. You're going to see more and more, I think, designed runs for quarterback. In addition to design runs, you're starting to see more scrambles too from quarterbacks. And how about this little factoid in doing the research? In 2007, Vince Young led the NFL Vince Young led the NFL that season with 20 designed runs. Well, shout out to my man VY. Just that he led the NFL with 20 design runs then. And now you go look at it. Hell, I mean, guys like Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, just looking on design runs from guys like that. We've gone into a different era of quarterback designed runs, which is important because the scramble element is also a part of that too. And so I think that we are not taking into account how much of NFL offenses are changing due to the QB running game. Also, like I said, design runs, but also in scrambles. So here's in 2023, quarterbacks ran for nearly 7,400 yards, 398 first downs on scrambles. Scrambles alone, just when the play breaks down, boom, quarterback on the scramble. Because every quarterback now has functional mobility. Back in the day, there is not Kirk Cousins is the closest you get now to a pocket passing statuesque quarterback. Maybe Matt Stafford is that guy or Jared Goff, but even there's some functional mobility in those guys' game. In 2000, that's double what you were producing via scrambles. At the start of this, they said 2007 is when they started keeping track of this. So you've basically more than doubled the scramble yards and first downs for quarterbacks since then. And they ran for, I think, 3,600 yards and 195 first downs in 2007. But the efficiency on those scrambles is also up. You went for 6.8 yards per scramble, 36% first down rate in 2007. Now you're up to, it says last year, you're up to 7.2 yards with a 39% first down rate. And see more and more, whether you're talking about design runs, which, you get the guys like Anthony Richardson on some design runs, like say Lamar Jackson, of course, is dangerous on design runs, or whether you're talking about scrambles, the quarterback run game is undeniable. It's morphing, it's almost terraforming the NFL and turning into a different league. And there are some, Warren Sharp, he claims that the scramble is actually the most efficient play in football. And by his numbers, he claims that as far back as he can go, and he's a data scientist, that quarterback scrambles average 8.5 yards, basically 8.5 yards per scramble. If you look at yards per attempt, you had 3 quarterbacks, I think, last year that averaged more than 8.5 yards per pass attempt. This season, you have like 5 quarterbacks averaging more than 8.5 yards per pass attempt. it's a highly efficient play because it's something as a defense, unless you put a spy on the quarterback, which is tough to do because then you're allocating extra resources to defend the quarterback. The scramble is a play that you can't account for. You as a defense, it's that's essentially when the play breaks down, deteriorates, and the quarterback makes something out of nothing. And more quarterbacks are scrambling. More and more, you got to design run game. But I think the scramble is way more dangerous than the quarterback because then there's a scramble drill. Like the scramble drill and the scramble, they're to me, they're both equally as tough to defend because I think one is a natural progression of the other. I think real good quarterbacks like a Patrick Mahomes, who's great at sack avoidance, starts with a base play. That play breaks down, then the scramble drill happens. Scramble drill is defended well, that's abandoned, and then there's the actual scramble. So it's 3 plays essentially that you got to defend in one. And how long does that take that play out for a defense? 8, 9 seconds potentially that can play out from the actual play, 3 seconds, and then the scramble drill of an extra 2 seconds, that's 5 seconds, and then the scramble where it's 7 to 8 seconds that we're talking about now. That's a long time to defend a play, especially when you got a quarterback that can throw on the run. So that's making, to me, it's for a defense, it's just making offenses tougher to defend, which is why they're doing what? Just drop 2 safeties deep. Just putting 2 safeties deep. That is our default coverage, and that way we won't give up too many big plays. We may give up some plays, but we won't give up the big play. And we won't, even if he is scrambling around, he won't be scrambling around throwing it deep to Xavier Worthy on a post route with nobody there. He'll have to throw it to Travis Kelce on a check down or throw it to Pacheco or someone on a check down or an underneath route. And we'll come up and tackle that. But what we can't afford is for that dude to get loose and for basically what Anthony Richardson did to the Texans. No team wants to give that up, even though the Texans still can't figure out how to give up 350-plus yard passes in the same game. When now in the NFL, nobody's giving up vertical passes. Nobody's giving up anything vertical. Everything's underneath. So it isn't. Like I said, that's part of why the game is changing. That's why if you're a team and you're drafting a quarterback, man, you want a quarterback with some mobility. Because they're giving you easy yards now. They're giving you easy yards to the quarterbacks. They're just going to, most of the time, just give it up to you. You can take that 4, 5, 6 yards. And like I said, they'll give it to you because it is not game plan for as much. Because you just can't afford to allocate resources to defend a scramble, unless you're going to have a spy on the whole time, which some teams afford to do if you have a quarterback that loves to scramble. And not a lot of quarterbacks in the NFL love to scramble. Even guys that can do it, they don't do it as much. Josh Allen does it. I think he's actually started to curtail his scrambles a little bit. Jaden Daniels is probably the most scramble-happy quarterback that came into the league and is in the league. Like Drake May in college and Jaden Daniels in college were 2 of the scramble-happiest quarterbacks out there. I believe you go look at like their scrambles. You go look at most scrambles in the Power 5 season since 2014. Drake May had 76 in 2022. Jaden Daniels had 67 in 2019 and 70 in 2022. So he likes it, but he's good at it. I mean, and Cowboys got to worry about this too because they're going to see him in the division. He's actually really good at it on his scrambles. He was in college on Jaden Daniels scrambles. LSU had a 27% explosive play rate when he was just scrambling because it's just tough to defend that. And I would say Lamar Jackson's like that too. I mean, Lamar Jackson in 2019, he was averaging like 10 yards a scramble. And over the years, he has scrambled less. Like I said, most quarterbacks, they're not scrambling as much because you put yourself in harm's way, you get hurt, Father Time, and your coach are probably telling you, I need you to protect yourself a little bit more. So when he first got in the league, he was reckless, scrambling all the time and averaging 10 yards scramble. He was a beast. And in 2020, 7.1 yards scramble. In 2021, 7.9. And 2022, 7.9. 2023, 6.6. You know what I mean? Just not, and I would say also teams take into account they like to scramble. So going against Lamar Jackson, we'll see against the Cowboys when they face Baltimore, how often do you put a spy on them? Because if you don't, he'll take that 7-8 yards pretty easy. And then that helps the passing game because they got to spy one of your back 7 defenders focused on the quarterback. Then you can't win the numbers game in the passing game because you're going to have more one-on-one. So do you take that from that deep safety, or do you take that linebacker and put him as a spy on a guy like Lamar Jackson? It just opens up a lot. And that's why even C.J. Stroud, he's on record. Matter of fact, I had to have Patrick pull this sound because I think I sent it to you at one point where C.J. Stroud says he wants to run more. He said he wants to be on the move more. He said that's the way he's going to add to his game, is to be on the move more and be on. And Joe Mixon actually talked about it in a separate podcast where he said, yeah, that's one of the things that C.J. Stroud is trying to add to his game. He basically wants to become like Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes doesn't scramble a lot, but if there's a critical, crucial moment and down, if they're in a playoff game, that's when you'll see Patrick Mahomes start scrambling and dialing it up. And so I think that's kind of what C.J. Stroud's talking about, being very judicious when you scramble and how you make teams pay. So they're not going to game plan. You don't game plan to stop Patrick Mahomes as a scrambler, but he has some devastating conversions as a scrambling quarterback in critical moments in the playoffs. And I think that's what C.J. Stroud is kind of talking about. So that's also something to keep in mind. More and more of these athletic quarterbacks coming into the league. Jaden Daniels is another one. The guy Caleb Williams is another one. You're gonna have more and more guys that are scrambling, and you have to account for it if you're a defense. All right, that's you know what? That's not the only thing I want to get into. We have some time here, so I want to ask a question.
Do you want that CJ Stroud audio?
Oh, do we have it?
Yes.
Man, you're the man. Yeah, let's dial that up. CJ Stroud talking about trying to be more mobile, trying to weaponize his mobility more.
Want to get done in that, and I think when we stay true to that, that the sky is the limit when it comes to scrambling. Because I don't know if y'all noticed, but I'll try to run a little more. Joe challenged me to see how athletic I was, so I felt like I got loose a couple times. But I think that's another thing I can get better at, is just scrambling. And when they play good on the back end, being able to use my feet.
See, he's like, I got to add that to my game. It's devastating. It's devastating, guys. And then it forces the defense to have to account for it in game planning. And so I see why I'm glad he's trying to add that to his game. And some quarterbacks have it naturally. Some quarterbacks got to work on it. He's athletic. He's a pocket passer. He just doesn't like to scramble and doesn't like to do that. The crazy thing about Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes in college was a dual threat quarterback. We watched him at Texas Tech. Then when he got to the NFL, he actually matured more into being a pocket passing guy. But it's still in him to be a guy that can hurt you with his legs. And you're starting to, I think more and more, you're starting to see some teams use it. And there are some coaches that actually bake it into the play. Like they essentially, where they clear out the routes, they'll tell the quarterback, now you should have some open space here. There should be a pocket of open space if you decide you want to scramble. Brian Dable was actually famous for it with doing it with Daniel Jones and Josh Allen, like essentially baking the scramble into the play and encouraging them to scramble. Like, hey, no, take the easy yards, and then then team will add a spy, and then they can put a spy beater into the game plan. Essentially, where the spy is, they'll have a guy to almost come right behind the spy. Quarterback steps up, spy steps up, dump it right behind him. And then you have your spy beater, and the chess match goes on and on. So, all right, we'll come back. We'll get into. I want to get into this conversation about the best or the most impressive 2-0 starts so far in the NFL, and the ugliest 0-2 starts in the NFL. And we'll talk about that coming up a little bit later on as well. Before we do that, though, we got to come back and get into what the facts, what the stats. We'll dial that up. Got a bunch of great facts and stats to share with you from the NFL, from college. We'll do that on the other side, right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Davis coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get into what the facts, what the stats. Gave you the stat yesterday. The NFL underdogs of 6 points or more were 8-0. Or sorry, are now 8-0 against the spread through 2 weeks, covering the spread by 9.5 points per game. It's the best start for big dogs in the history, in NFL history, I should say, or in the history of Action Network, because they're the ones I got the stat from. NFL dogs of 3+ points though won 7 games outright in week 2. So NFL dogs of 3 points or more won 7 games outright in week 2. 7-6 straight up. That's the most straight up wins in any week since 2021. For them dogs, for them NFL dogs. I need more dogs. There you go. Let's go early on. See, that's when, and who has the knowledge, I don't know, but that's when you can catch Vegas slipping, because Vegas doesn't really know either. They think they know. They didn't know. They know the Saints were going to be 2-0. They had no idea.
They didn't know the Vikings were going to be 2-0.
Yeah, exactly. They don't know that either. They did not know that Cincinnati would be 0-2. No, they didn't know that.
Ravens 0-2.
Yeah, exactly. Like they didn't know that. So you can catch Vegas slipping. I mean, that's why they build a casino. I wouldn't try to make a living out of it. But early on in the seasons when you do it, because they don't know. Even in college, you can do that with Vegas a little bit. They don't know, and they don't know. That's why, like those Florida State lines, remember Florida State losing to unranked opponents. Like early on in the season is when you can get Vegas, but they usually wise up by week 4. Around week 4, they know. They've done their research. They do better research and more research than we do, and than you do. So, but early on in the season, you can catch Vegas slipping a little bit, make some money, as evidenced by the big dogs and the dogs in the first couple of weeks of this season. All right, other what the facts, what the stats here. And this is Xavier Worthy. Man, I don't know what this means. Okay, so Xavier Worthy, well, I do know what it means. It means Xavier Worthy's not getting as much, playing time, which means he's not going to get as much target share. He opened week 2's game on the sideline, and not because he was hurt or anything, just because of personnel grouping, because they didn't have him with the first 2 rushers, and they're playing a lot of 13 personnel. As we told you, Chiefs last year played more 13 personnel than anybody in the league. Through 2 games, Xavier Worthy's run a route on 74% of Patrick Mahomes' dropbacks. If you combine that with the target per route run, he's got a 14% target share now. So target share, not what I thought it would be. I thought it'd be a little bit higher than that. I would say the Chiefs, and maybe now with Pacheco out, they're going to be throwing the football a little bit more. So maybe, his target share will go up. The Chiefs used, how about this, 11 personnel on 62% of their plays in 2023. That's 1 back, 1 tight end, 3 wide receivers on the field. In 2024, the rate of 11 personnel with the Chiefs has dropped to 45%. The reason that Xavier Worthy started on the bench, and or at least on the sidelines, I should say, for week 2, is because they started with 3 tight ends on the field. They are one of 4 teams to use multiple tight ends over half the time in 2024. So I guess they're like, we still don't trust our wide receivers that much. We'd rather use our tight ends. But then they just cut Peyton Hendershot. Did y'all see that? I think they waived him, actually. The Cowboys tight end, if I'm not mistaken. I thought I saw that. But yeah, so the Chiefs, if the Chiefs are doing something funky on offense, chances are it's going to work. And right now they're using a lot of 13 personnel to try to throw teams off. And I wonder, I think they've had a handoff on like 53%. Like the first play of 53% of their drives, they've handed off the football. Now with Pacheco out, I wonder if they're changing that. But you guys know I love me some Carson Steele. Matter of fact, I'll give you a factoid about him, because with Pacheco out, there's a good chance we're going to see a lot of this guy, Carson Steele, who they call Crocky J. Right? Is that his name? The Crocky J, because he owns an alligator?
Oh, yes.
Or maybe is the Crocky J the name of the alligator?
No, they call him Crocky because the name of the alligator is Crocky.
So both are named Crocky. Yes. All right, there you go. Okay, so there you go. Thanks for clearing that up, Patrick. But he made the Chiefs roster. And how about this? In 3 preseason games, the Chiefs, he had 87 yards, 2 touchdowns on just 11 carries. He forced 9 missed tackles. 81 of his 87 yards were after first contact, and 3 of those 11 runs went for 15 or more yards. And dude, he played fullback actually in college a little bit too. He had some snaps even at fullback. He had more yards after initial contact in his career in college 2021 to 2023 than any running back in the country. And it includes Bijan Robinson because he's on this list too. That includes more than Blake Corum, more than a lot of guys who are NFL players. He's a good player. Went undrafted though for the Chiefs. Ended up for UCLA from Ball State, 3,259 yards and 28 touchdowns, 648 carries. He was a workhorse. Averaged 5 yards per carry in college. 184 missed tackles forced. Had 44 runs of 15 or more yards and didn't even get drafted. It's cold out there as a running back, man. But he was, like I said, he was 7.9 yards per carry in the preseason, 7.4 yards at the contact per carry, 27% explosive run rate. He might be a guy you might want to think about investing in fantasy. I mean, because I think he might make some noise for Kansas City. All right, there you go. That is our. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I will throw in the reported reason why Hendershot was cut.
So they did waive him.
They did.
Yeah.
Cut
What was
him,
it?
because in week 1, when Roquan Smith hit Patrick Mahomes, and the Kansas City bench thought it was late hit, he got up and pushed over Roquan Smith, and they fined the Chiefs $100,000 for that. The NFL did. For starting,
they found the Chiefs $100,000.
They fined him $5,000, and they fined the Chiefs $100,000 for not having controlled their bench, I guess.
Damn.
And the bench starting a fight.
Is real cheap.
And
is cheap.
$100,000. They're like, see you later, bud.
That's damn. That's a third of your salary. So you out of here. We're like, what? That's crazy. That's wild. I didn't realize they fined the Chiefs $100,000.
I did not either, but that is
actually
what they're reading,
expensive.
and that's why apparently that's why he's going.
But he took up for Patrick Mahomes though. That shouldn't matter.
Now if you got a cheap owner.
Now if you got a cheap owner. Wow. Okay. Yeah. I didn't realize that was the reason. I knew I saw that and I was like, that's weird because they were using him. And they use a lot at this point. They use a lot of 13 personnel. So they're gonna sign it. They must either got a tight end they really like out there already, or they're about to sign one.
There may also be a point where it depends on what they do with Pacheco, but then bring in another running back, and
that's true too. You're right.
They may need a clear spot for another running back.
No, you're right about that. Good point. Didn't think about that. All right, there you go. That's what the stats. We got plenty more stats and facts to share with you, but we'll do that throughout the show. We come back, we'll get into the result of that Monday Night Football game last night, and we'll address the question that I threw out there. Most impressive 2-0 starts, most troublesome, or maybe the ugliest 0-2 starts out there. We'll get to that too coming up on the other side. Talk some NFL, and we'll go behind the burnt orange curtain, and we'll we'll hear from Steve Sarkisian from his Monday media availability. All of that and more when we return right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Davis coming back on the horn. Welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a top of the charts Tuesday edition of the Rodcast. That's when my co-host, the Idillionaire Patrick Davis, plays jams that reach the top of the Billboard charts on this day in history. So we appreciate him always having fun on a top of the charts Tuesday. We also appreciate him coming up with the topic for the big fat poll of the day, which is already posted up for you at the Horn ATX on X. Patrick, give the folks the topic for the big fat poll of the day.
Big fat poll of the day. Which is a bigger worry for the Cowboys, the rushing offense or the rushing defense? Right now, rushing defense winning the vote with 65%, so 35% for the rushing offense. But people right now a little bit more worried about the rushing defense. I understand. I think both are viable options. I think both are worries. I'm just curious which is more worrisome for you. I personally will say the offense because I think the defense is fixable. I think you have the talent on the defense. I don't think you have the talent on the offense.
Which is, yeah, I agree with that, actually. I don't know if you do have talent, but I will say for me, the defense, I think I've seen them win games without a dominant run game since I saw it last year.
That's true.
I don't know if their defense can be this bad against the run and then win 12 games. We'll see. I mean, they could, but then the combination of the two, now you're really in trouble. So we're having a conversation about which is worse, but the combination of the two, if you don't fix one of them, you're in trouble. Because you can't have two Shakespearean flaws, right? You can't have two glaring deficiencies of this magnitude on your team. You got to fix one of these.
You basically cannot also not control the clock on offense and not control the clock on defense.
Not control the line of scrimmage on offense or defense, basically.
Yeah, that's gonna be a problem.
That's gonna be exactly. So I'm with you. I think I'm a Chiefs defense. I'm a defensive guy, but there is no wrong answer right here. It's just all bad for the Cowboys. They got to figure it out. They got to solve this problem. They honestly don't have time to do it because they got Baltimore coming up. So you don't have time to fix your rush defense. Now Baltimore is trying to throw the ball more, but I can see them, being very matchup specific here and deciding no, we're going to power run game on these damn Cowboys. We got the back to do it, and we got it in our DNA. We just a new identity offensively.
Yeah, no, I get. Yeah, it makes sense. If you're Baltimore, you go. I get we want to have our own identity and we want to set our own tone, but we can walk away with a pretty easy W here.
Come on now.
If we just run we signed Derrick Henry. It feels like we should be able to just hand him the ball and let it go.
Run downhill. Yep. We combine with some play action over the top potentially when the Cowboys get sucked in.
I mean, you can run. You can run play
the Cowboys
action.
Are favorite though, aren't they? Aren't the Cowboys favorite in this game?
I mean, you can run play action. And
Baltimore is 0-2. So
I get their 0-2, but one of those was against the Chiefs. So
that is and it was on last play of the game, basically, is where he lost that game.
Ravens are favored by 1 right now.
Ravens favored by 1. Okay, so it might have switched on us. I don't know where it started at actually.
Yeah, but you can play action and then just a Lamar Jackson rollout. That whole defense just tries to collapse in to stop Derrick Henry. Lamar Jackson just runs down the sideline for however many yards he wants.
Yeah, that's for you to Kai. I wonder if the Baltimore Ravens have been leaning towards spreading things out. They want to throw it. I wonder if you'll get now more of an old school Baltimore Ravens approach where they'll go with some compressed, condensed sets and just try to run it downhill on the Dallas Cowboys with Derrick Henry. We shall see. All right, that's the topic for the Big Fat Poll today. Thank you, Patrick. Appreciate that conversation starter. Before we dive into some NFL discussion, I want to talk about the best 2-0 starts and the worst 0-2 starts. We'll get into that conversation. We'll also go behind the Burn-Ons curtain next segment, hear from Steve Sarkisian and talk about the Texas football team, the number 1 ranked Texas football team. We'll also dive into that number that has been released, the line for the ULM game. Texas favored by 44.5 points, even with Arch Manning expected to start that game. So we'll start diving into it as well. And I want to give some props to the Texas defense. So we'll talk a lot of Texas football coming up in this hour. But first, let's get updated. Let's get educated. Let's get informed with all the top stories today with Patrick Davis and the Horn Headlines.
All right, your Horn Headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. In the MLB, the Astros dropped their opening game with the Padres 3-1 last night. Spencer Arrighetti was able to get through 5 innings, giving up 2 runs, but the Astros offense couldn't get anything going against Yu Darvish. Hunter Brown gets the call today, trying to even the series against Michael King in San Diego. And the Rangers begin their series with the Blue Jays today, with Nathan Eovaldi getting the start. This will also begin the Rangers' last homestand of the season, playing the next 7 at home, where they're 7 games above 500 this season. And in the NFL, the Falcons snuck out a 22-21 victory over the Eagles on Monday Night Football. A Drake London touchdown with 34 seconds left got the lead for the Falcons, and a Jalen Hurts threw a pick to seal the game. And that is your Horn headlines.
All right, thank you, Patrick, for the Horn headlines. Appreciate those. Yes, last night, somehow the Eagles were able to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory because it looks like they had that game in hand and looks like the game was over, and all they had to do was milk the clock. That was not the case. Facing 3rd and 3 from the Atlanta 10, got about 1:46 left. The Falcons were out of timeouts at this point, too. Nick Sirianni, they called a pass play. Now, I would say Kellen Moore did. He approved it because he got to go through his headset. He could have always vetoed that call from Kellen Moore and went, no. We're going to run the football. All right. That's the coach has that ability. He did not, which means he approved of the call. And it, like I said, I have no problem with the play call, the play design, because it worked. Jalen Hurts made a good throw. Saquon Barkley was open. Except he did not execute. He did not catch the football. He dropped it. And, of course, that stopped the clock. And after the field goal, that pushed the score to 21-15. Falcons had more than enough time to go down and steal the win. Now, maybe with the way that Kirk Cousins and the Falcons were playing Kirk Cousins and Falcons playing for most of that game, not the second half, but for the first half, maybe the belief was that, Kirk Cousins couldn't go down there. Also, the stigma that Kirk Cousins not a great quarterback in prime time. Maybe the belief was that he doesn't have, he doesn't have enough, right? Fortitude. He didn't have enough grit to be able to go down and, execute a game-winning drive. Well, he did. And he was great on that game-winning drive. He was 5. It was the best we've seen him play all season. 5 or 6, 154.8 passer rating, 70 yards, and 1 touchdown that drive. And I will say that he figured something out. If you go look at the first game of the season for Kirk Cousins, and go look at the first half of that game last night, Kirk Cousins looked very pedestrian, or even below average, if you want to throw that out there. First 6 quarters of the season for him, game 1 and the first half last night, 59% completion percentage, 230 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 2 picks, passer rating 63, and only had 1 completion of at least 20 yards. But if you look at the second half versus the Eagles, maybe they figured out something. 166 passing yards, 10.4 yards per attempt, 2 touchdowns passing, a passer rating of 148.5, and an explosive play percentage of over 18%. So either maybe the play calling changed a little bit. Maybe they were asking him to do some things outside of his comfort zone that he was uncomfortable with. Not sure. I think a lot more of the passes were in between the numbers to the middle of the field. He just doesn't seem to have the zip on the football yet or anymore. I don't know which one it is, to be able to throw the football deep outside the numbers, but that's okay. You can still, hell, man, Drew Brees toward the end of his career couldn't do that either. Neither could, Peyton Manning toward the end of his career. Those guys still were able to manage games and win games that way. And maybe Kirk Cousins is at that point. I was shocked, by the way, that the Eagles didn't decide to blitz him at all on that final drive. That was crazy because they had so much success blitzing him. He had only completed 40% of his passes when they sent 1 extra man on a blitz, 3.4 yards per attempt, 20% success rate, and they didn't blitz him once on the final drive. I think that was a dang coaching mistake. But I'm not going to crucify Nick Sirianni and Kellen Moore for the play call and the play design. They didn't execute it. And by the way, give Saquon Barkley props because he took the blame for dropping the ball. He said, I dropped the ball, let my team down today. Shouldn't have put the defense in that position. If I make the catch, game's over. Relax, get back to my old habits, and I just got to get back and get back to work. So, yeah, I mean, he took blame for it. But the truth is, as a coach, and it's on Nick Sirianni to think it through, to think through all the different scenarios and most importantly, what could go wrong. And I think they just kept thinking about what could go right. But as a coach, you have to account for the unknown variables. And when you're throwing the football, it's like that old DKR quote, right? When you throw the football, 3 things happen and 2 of them are bad. In that situation, the ghost of the late great DKR probably should have been whispering in the ear of Nick Sirianni, because in that situation, you have increased the amount of risk. That was unnecessary risk that you took to execute that play, and it came back to bite you, the necessary risk, because it had to, first of all, you had to have the pass protection work out well. You had to have Jalen Hurts make a good throw, which he did. Saquon Barkley had to get open, which he did, but he just couldn't make the catch. And that unknown variable is something that, as a coach, it's your job to account for. So you want to minimize the amount of unknown variables in that situation, and that's why just running the football or and milking the clock, you minimize the risk, and there are fewer variables outside of your control there, right? Yeah, you still got to get the snap right and all that kind of stuff, but when you're throwing the football, there are a lot more other variables that you have to consider that you have no control over, really. But when you're running the football, minimize the risk, fewer unknown variables to account for. Hey, just a handoff. And you know what? May not even need to hand it off. You got a quarterback that can run, who's former power lifter that used to execute the tush push. Why not just do something like that? You know what I mean? And I think the unknown is what came back to haunt them. And like I said, I'm not going to kill them for it, because I think it was a really good play design. The play call obviously caught them off guard. They weren't ready for it. But human error is something that you got to consider. And that's what came back to get them. Saquon Barkley, one of your best players, simply dropped the football. Human error. But you got to consider human. That's why people like coaches like explosive plays, because you know why it's hard to execute a 10 to 15 play drive as opposed to a 6 to 7 play drive? Human error. Somebody's going to screw up. Somebody on your offense is going to screw up. They're going to miss a block. They're going to get a penalty. Somebody's going to drop a pass. Quarterback's going to miss a throw. There's so many different 11 guys have to execute perfectly on every play. You ain't going to do that for 10, 12 plays or 15 plays. You got a much better chance doing it for 6 or 7. That's what Bill Walsh figured out. And he was like, that's why I need explosive plays, because that idiot over there, he's going to do something. He's going to grab and hold, and that's going to put us behind the chains, or he's going to miss a block, get my quarterback sacked or whatever. Or this guy's going to drop a pass, run the wrong route. Human error is what he said. I can't control it. So what I got to do is minimize the amount of unknown variables. How you do that? I got to get to the goal line quicker. How do I do that? Explosive plays. That way I ain't got to worry about 15 plays and then 3 guys screwing up my 15 play drive because they made, a mental mistake or had a lapse in judgment. And the same thing in this situation, but on a micro level, there are a lot of unknown variables, and you just increase the amount of unnecessary risk by throwing that football in that moment. That's why Peyton Manning and Eli and Matt Ryan watching, the Manning cast are going, he can't throw the football. There's no way he's going to throw the football. There's no way he's going to throw the football in this situation. Yeah, because it's risky. It's risky. And that unknown risk and that unnecessary risk and those unknown variables came back to haunt Nick Sirianni.
Yeah, and it's being aggressive at the wrong time and being passive at the wrong time in back-to-back drives, because you're aggressive on the offense to throw the ball, and then you put your defense out there and then play very passive.
Yeah.
And don't rush and don't go hard at the quarterback. You kind of just drop back and let everybody let the play out. And let them do what they're going to do. If you're going to be aggressive, go be aggressive.
Be aggressive.
And say, we screwed up on that one, but we're going to come back out and make a play on the other side of the ball. Or just be passive on both and let the cards fall where they may. But it felt like they missed both of those judgments of when to be aggressive and when to be passive, that maybe they felt like they got burned. They didn't want to get burned again. But you can't. You screwed up one, you got to go fix it on the other side.
Agreed. Yep. Are you an aggressive team? Is that your culture, or are you just trying to pick when you have that identity. And I think
that's
it may be right. They came back to bite him because if they'd have been aggressive both sides, they might have saved him on the defensive side.
exactly.
No,
And
we're aggressive. That's okay.
I think that's
okay.
where
We're
you
good.
see more of people's frustration with Sirianni now, is that it feels like Sirianni has no identity for this team. That he basically is getting coordinators, but he fired everybody after last season. So his DC and his OC left after the Super Bowl. And then you went, well, they were the identity. It wasn't Sirianni. It was his
Feels
coordinators.
like
those guys are both doing good things. And, I know the Colts are 0-2, but that team doesn't look as bad as they've looked before. I think both
I like
those
Steichen. I like Jonathan Gannon.
So both of them are doing okay where they're at. And then you bring in the coaches last year. You have to get rid of both of them because their identity last year was garbage play calling. So they got to get rid of that. And now again, you go into, well, who's making these calls? Who is final decision on this? Who's deciding the identity? Because if you are going to be aggressive, be aggressive. But if you're not, then run the ball, control the clock, and then go back on the other side and don't allow a big play. But you can't give them 2 minutes and say don't allow a big play. You want to give them 30 seconds and say, okay, now you have to do all this in 20, 30 seconds and get down the field on us. I don't think you can do that.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree with you. That's a great point because I think for the Eagles with their coaching situation, because I know they want to give more of the offense to Jalen Hurts. As a matter of fact, there's a quote here from Nick Sirianni, and I don't know if I'm not saying he's throwing Jalen Hurts under the bus here, but he says that there was a mechanism on the 3rd and 3 pass play call where if it's not wide open, Jalen Hurts sits down and takes a sack. And at that point, they'd run the clock and kick the field goal. And, of course, it was indeed open. He threw it, and the guy, obviously, Saquon Barkley dropped it. So it's, I don't know why. And maybe the quarterback, you could have, changed the play. I have no idea. But for the Eagles, they got to figure out something because I'm with you. I don't know right now if their offensive identity, I don't know if they have one. Because they used to be just a team that went for it on 4th down. They were aggressive. That's part of the tush push, always aggressive. So I like them actually, being aggressive and going for it. But I think on defense, they also got to have that. They got to keep that same energy, as you pointed out there too. So Eagles with the loss, Kellen Moore once again taking a lot of heat for that play call. But I think Nick Sirianni, you didn't veto it, man. You could have said, no, we're just going to run the ball. We're going to play it safe here. He did not, and now they're both taking the heat. But he's a genius if they get it, because nobody expected that. Nobody saw it coming. If Saquon Barkley catches the ball today, they're talking about how awesome Kellen Moore is. That's the thin line between it. All right, let's get to this question I threw out there earlier before we start talking some Texas football on the other side. The 2-0 teams in the NFL. The 2-0 teams are Buffalo, Pittsburgh, Houston, the Chargers, Kansas City, Minnesota, New Orleans, Tampa Bay, and Seattle. So you can take Kansas City out of it if you want to, but Kansas City's that other team. I'd probably say other than Kansas City, what's the most impressive 2-0 start? Because Kansas City is trying to work on a three-peat. So as a defending champion, maybe we take them out of it. If there's no question, the most impressive 2-0 start is New Orleans. And it actually isn't close in my opinion. New Orleans right now, if you go look at point differential, they are leading the NFL and among all the 2-0 teams in point differential, plus 62, and the Chargers are at plus 35. They're second in point differential among among teams who are 2-0. That is absurd. As a matter of fact, if you go look at the point differential you go look at over the last 6 games, going back through last season through last 6 games, the Saints are at plus 110. They're at plus 110. The Ravens are second in the last 6 regular season games, because the Saints didn't make the playoffs, at plus 59. There's something going on with the Saints. They've scored on all 14 of Derek Carr's drives this year. And I just told you guys, if you look at QBR, you look at passer rating, and you look at Pro Football Focus passing grade, the guy who is at the top of all of those QB metrics, it's Derek freaking Carr. And the truth is, it's more about Clint Kubiak and what he's done. They've gone from being the last team in pre-snap motion rates and play action pass rates. They're now first in play action rate. They're in motion. They're top 5 in motion at the snap. Excuse me. They actually are top in the NFL. They are the top team in pre-snap motion. Design rollouts. They went from 25th last year. Now their design rollouts. They're first in design rollouts. So that's another big part of their game. Clint Kubiak, kind of going back to Garrett Kubiak, his dad, who loved, if you are a Texans fan, you remember it, they loved the design rollouts to do with the Texans as well. That's kind of part of, even when Peyton Manning was under that Gary Kubiak system, that was part of what they really liked, was to move and roll the pocket. But there's no doubt, if you look at teams that have been able to score the most points, like as many points as the Saints have scored. So most points scored in the first 2 games of a season since 1970. The Saints have scored 91. If you go look at the 2009 Saints, they scored 93 points in the first 2 games of the season. And they won the Super Bowl. Yeah, most points scored in the first 2 games of the season since 1970. The Saints in 2009 scored 93. They won the Super Bowl. Saints have scored 91, and they are tied with the 71 Cowboys, who also won the Super Bowl. Like, it's something freaky and crazy going on with the Saints right now, and it's all because of Clint Kubiak's system. How about this little stat? No team other than the Saints has used play action on plus 40% of their passes in 2024. The Saints have used both play action and pre-snap motion simultaneously on over 40% of their pass plays. Nobody else is even close to that. They've used pre-snap motion and play action pass on 42% of dropbacks in 2024. The highest season-long rate in history is 32%. So if they keep this up, they'll be using those 2 cheat codes on passing plays more than any team in the NFL has done in the history of the league. Remember I told you about being extremists? I was like, I don't know why these coaches are being moderate with cheat codes and hacks. I say, if it works, use it all the time. Like, why are you being a moderate about it? If it works, use it all the time. And I guess you could say, I guess you could be gratuitous, and it's like saying you have a favorite sauce, you want to slather your favorite sandwich or slather whatever meat you're eating or protein in that sauce. I guess that's basically what I'm saying. Be gratuitous. Slather your offense in these sauces. And that essentially is what Clint Kubiak is doing. He's doing what I suggest for Sark to do. To be an extremist. Just, if it works, why are we only running it 55% of the time? He's decided, man, pre-snap motion works. The numbers all say it increases yards per attempt, yards per rush, completion percentage, passer rating. Everything is better with pre-snap motion. All right, I'm going to use it on damn near every drop back. And I think some of the coaches are becoming extremists about that kind of stuff. So I like that Clint Kubiak's doing that. And if you go look at their personnel distribution or personnel variety, like this, if you look at teams who have at least 3 receivers on the field and the percentage of plays with at least 3 receivers on the field, they have the lowest amount or the fewest plays with 3 receivers on the field in the league through the first 2 weeks. Less than 15% of their plays, they have 3 receivers on the field. They are running, you go look at it, they're running 21 personnel, damn near 25% of the time. They're running 12 personnel, really high rates, over 30% of the time. Like they have they have a lot of personnel diversity that I thought they would lose when they lost Sean Payton. They did not. So there is no question the most impressive 2-0 start is the New Orleans Saints. That could change. You got one, Patrick, you think is a more impressive 2-0 start?
I'll mention 2 teams that, so there's only 2 teams that are 2-0, and the teams they beat both won their other game.
That's good.
The Bills have played their 2 wins are against the Dolphins and the Cardinals, who both have wins in their other games. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are the other team
Ooh.
that is 2-0 against the Commanders, who are 1-1, and the Lions, who are 1-1. So
I like that.
So those are the two teams that have won where it wasn't like you could look at the Chargers and go, the Chargers are 2-0. They beat the Panthers and the Raiders.
Yeah.
So
No,
it's hard to look at that. And that's one of the problems with the Saints, which I agree. They look amazing, but one of their wins is over the Panthers. It diminishes. Exactly. It diminishes. The Cowboys win, lifts them higher. The Panthers win. You go, well, yeah, but I mean, Westlake could beat the Panthers right now. It's not that impressive.
Panthers just benched their starting quarterback, too.
They just benched Bryce Young. Andy Dalton's going to be starting for them now.
Andy Dalton's going to start for them. Yeah, so that's how bad things are. They already did week 2. It's like usually they'll give you like the first month. It's like, nah, we've seen it.
Yeah, I'd say right now Tampa Bay looks really good, but the Bills are just surprising to me because I thought after losing everybody that this wasn't going to be a team. There'd be aggression, and they put up 30+ points in both their first 2 games and beat 2 teams that are decent teams.
I agree with you about Buffalo. I'm surprised Buffalo has started this well, too. I thought they would drive off. This is Josh Allen's playing really well. I mean, he's playing MVP caliber football. The Tampa Bay thing, too, that's really surprising because Tampa Bay's just playing good football because of Baker Mayfield. Going back to the quarterbacks, I was just talking about these guys. Baker Mayfield right now, 2nd in passer rating in the NFL. Baker Mayfield tied for 5th in QBR. Right now, Baker Mayfield's playing really good, so they're shocking folks in terms of their 2-0 start. Pittsburgh, that's got to be a surprising one, guys. Justin Fields, is playing decent football. Like that's
good enough to win.
Good enough to win because we know if you got Tomlin has won games in that really tough division, but with lackluster quarterback play post Big Ben. Nobody in the division has won more close games than Mike Tomlin, and yet still has not had a losing season without a really good quarterback. There's a belief that Justin Fields could be an upgrade if he just continues to learn how to manage the game and he's not a liability for them at quarterback. So right now he's managing the game relatively well. He's not making a lot of big plays. That'll come, but he's not losing the game for him right now.
No,
that's all Tomlin needs.
They've scored 31 points total this season.
Exactly.
But they've allowed 16.
Tomlin, man, they playing some defense up there. They're playing some D in Pittsburgh.
Imagine if the team had an offense.
It'd be crazy. That's why I say, dude, that because they got wide receiver talent too. They got skill talent as well. They got like skill talent. They just, I'm with you. I don't know about quarterback, but at least, like I said, Justin Fields isn't hurting them. The Texans 2-0 start. We've talked about it. We're too close to it. Some people are impressed by it. We're not as impressed because we know the ceiling of this group. So I've heard some people say, "Oh man, Texans look great." They look all right.
They look like they have a lot of talent on that team. Is what they look like. The Joe Mixon injury will be interesting to keep watching. What happens if because Joe Mixon ran great in the first game, then they didn't run well in the second game. And then he had that injury.
Pierce then, huh?
Which
saddle up Pierce.
I mean, because Pierce didn't even really run the ball. He didn't get a running play in game 2. They gave it to Cam Akers more, and then he coughed up the ball, which is kind of what Cam Akers does.
Right? Yeah, experiment's not going.
And then we got to figure out, if there's going to be. I'm still waiting to see what fines or suspensions or anything else comes out after that game, because they didn't call anything on the field for the Azeez Al-Shaair punch to Roschon Johnson on the sideline. Yeah. You figure something's coming from that. You know, I know D'Amico is now upset because he's saying it is a hip drop tackle that took out Joe Mixon, and that's supposed to be illegal. So if they try and put down any punishment on that one after the game, to try and dissuade those hip drop tackles more. But I haven't seen anything yet of any actual rulings on any of that. So, but I'm curious. The punch on the sideline, like they have to do something, right?
I don't know. Actually, I don't know. I don't know
they
if they deem it.
They find Hendershot. They find the Chiefs at $100,000 for Hendershot pushing over a player. It feels like maybe they would do something.
Yeah, you're right. No, they probably will. They're probably just taking their time, but they probably will do something about it. The NFL is all about precedent, so they did it. They did it for one guy. They'll do it to another. But yeah, just getting back to the 2-0 teams that are impressive. I will say that Minnesota, of course, also I'm shocked actually. By Minnesota's 2-0 start because of Sam Darnold. But getting back to our earlier conversation, Sam Darnold, 3rd best Pro Football Focus passing grade right now. He is 5th. If you go look at it, he's 5th in passer rating right now in the NFL. and he is tied for 5th in QBR. Sam Darnold's playing the best football of his career right now.
Yeah.
And so there's like I said, there's like 3 guys playing the best football of their career, arguably right now, and it's a big reason why their teams are 2-0. You brought up Tampa Bay. Baker's balling right now. I brought up New Orleans. Derek Carr is playing his best football he's played, and Minnesota's 2-0, and that's because Sam Darnold's playing the best football that we've seen him play. And honestly, Pittsburgh's 2-0 because we haven't seen Justin Fields manage the game this well. He ain't on it. He's not making the big plays and getting the big long explosive runs. But for him becoming a game manager, guys, maybe the biggest improvement or leap of improvement and progress in his career.
No, I mean, and
can just manage a game now.
Yeah, it's that huge test of, is it the Bears or is it the player? And that's what we're finding out.
That's a great point.
Is it the Jets? Is it the Panthers? Is it a bad because hey, Caleb Williams is running for his life.
Yeah. Nature versus nurture here, huh? Old discussion. Is the QB or is it the environment?
They were showing the picture of Caleb Williams and Justin Fields in Bears jerseys, both sitting on the bench, breathing heavy with their head back, just being like, they're killing me out there.
This is my life. This is my life. Like, yeah, this is your life. You're a highly drafted quarterback in the NFL. This is your reward.
Yeah.
Play for the Bears.
And then they look over at CJ Stroud and they're like, you have all of the weapons? You have it.
Hey, trust me, that was a dumpster fire of a franchise too.
It is.
So,
and honestly, CJ Stroud's having to run a lot more than he probably want to right now too.
Yeah, he's under a lot more pressure, I think, in the rest than we would have thought. Seattle also, we haven't talked enough about them. They're off to a really nice 2-0 start. But once again, I'll refer back to my quarterback rankings because Geno is playing some of his best football we've seen him play. We know he was great last year, but right now he is 4th in QBR. He is right behind CJ Stroud in passer rating. So he's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th in passer rating, which is not bad at all. So Geno Smith is so all these surprising starts where we didn't think these teams would start 2-0. It's all because the quarterbacks have exceeded expectations.
I will go with this one. The Patriots are overtime away from being 2-0, and that would be the most surprising 2-0 team.
That would be the most surprising 2-0 team. Yeah, I agree. That would be shocking to me
because the Seahawks and Patriots went to overtime.
Yeah, and the Seahawks, man, got a brand new coach, so defense is looking real good. I like that hire they made for the OC, the former Washington Huskies OC, Ryan Grubb. That offense, man, it's looking pretty good. And they got remember we talked about the wide receivers they had that were really good weapons. And I think now with DK Metcalf and Jackson Smith and Jigba, that they're loaded there at Seattle. All right, so we'll get to the ugliest 0-2 teams a little bit later, but when we come back, let's hear from Steve Sarkisian. Let's talk Texas football on the other side. We'll hear from Sark addressing the Arch Manning and Quinn Ewers situation. We'll hear him also talking about his defense, offense, and some of the young playmakers on this roster. All of that and more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Low, and Rod Babers coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to hear from Steve Sarkisian. And Sark spoke to the media yesterday and talked about a number of different things, including their ranking right now, number one team in the country. Here's Steve Sarkisian talking about how the Longhorns are handling all of the hype about being the number one team in college football.
Well, I think now more than ever, and I don't want to take anything away from the polls because of the 12-team playoff. It really doesn't matter, and we say it all the time as a team. It's not really what other people think of us. It's about what we do, and we've got to perform, and we got to prepare to perform, because the way this is set up, back in the day, the polls were huge because the polls dictated who got to play for a national championship and ultimately who won the national championship. Nowadays, you got to go earn it. And so I think it's good to show that, hey, what we're capable of. But at the end of the day, we're going to have to go earn this thing. And the mission is far, far from over. We've got a long way to go. So again, our guys, I don't even think they'd talk about it. You'll bring it up to them when they get up here, but I don't think, like, they're not sitting in the locker room talking about it. They're focused on what they need to do to improve and giving each other a hard time about stuff from the game, because that's what you do in the locker room. They're probably making fun of Ethan Burke's dive into the end zone and so on and so forth. But that's what teams do. I just don't think they're consumed with it.
All right, let's start talking about the players. They're focused on other things, and that's good. They definitely earned this recognition as the number one team in the country. But there's some more hype surrounding this team, not only with the number one ranking, but the fact that they were able to leapfrog Georgia to the number one ranking the week their starting quarterback went down, and Arch Manning ended up taking the reins as starting quarterback and scored 5 touchdowns in 29 plays. That was so impressive. They decided to make Texas the number one team in the country. So here is Sark talking about the Arch madness and the Arch mania that's going on and how they're handling all the hype surrounding their celebrity quarterback.
I don't do anything. Arch is just another guy on our team. And the reason I'm able to do that is because that's who Arch is every day. Arch he's a selfless teammate. He cares about the guys on the team. He cares about Quinn. They've got a great relationship. He works his tail off. He wants to play good football for them because he knows how hard everybody's working. So I literally don't address it with him. I don't address it with the team. He's just part of the team, and I think that's been the approach. If you even go back to the recruiting process, it was never about the name. It was about the player and the ability and the parents and so on and so forth. And so that's made it actually pretty easy that we don't have to address it. And I think from Quinn's perspective, I think Quinn, he just wants to keep playing, nobody wants to have to come out of a game because you get injured. But I think if you ask Quinn today, he's fired up for Arch because he knows how hard Arch has been working. I mean, I go back to this all the time. You all were there for that first spring game. He didn't play very good. And so the growth that he's shown and the ability to work at his craft, there's a real level of appreciation, I think, from Quinn to Arch, but also Arch to Quinn, because I know Arch has been there supporting Quinn through his journey as well. So that's a sign of a great room and a sign of a good team.
All right, let's start talking about that QB room. And it is a loaded quarterback room. There's no question about that. Also, the defense, pretty loaded as well, have only allowed 19 points through the first 3 games of the season. Last time Texas defense allowed that few points through the first 3 games of the season, they were, I think it's 1983, which was a really good team, one of the best defenses in Texas football history. Here's Sark talking about the next step for the defense for Texas.
Well, hopefully we can keep people out of the end zone. I think through 3 games, it's like 19 points. And I think I'm really frustrated because we probably think it should still be at 12. That was take nothing away from UTSA, but the run hits because we screwed something up. And then we couldn't get the runner on the ground. He outran us. So, our whole deal is if we can stop the run and we can minimize the explosive pass plays and then create turnovers, and turnovers get created a lot of different ways, getting pressure on the quarterback, forcing errant throws, sack fumbles, things of that nature, short fields. Those are always areas that you want more of, right? And many times we can get our hands on the ball, the better. The more times we can affect the quarterback, the better. But that all starts because we're stopping the run, and then we're not giving people chunk yard plays, those chunk plays in the passing game.
Yeah, he's right. about the defense, man. They're playing really well. They got a high standard too. Guys upset they gave up that touchdown versus UTSA as well. They should be. Here's start talking about the defensive coaches though. They've made some changes, right, Scott? You had Johnny Nansen being added to the staff as a co-DC and a linebackers coach. Scott Hazelton coming over from Michigan State. Helping out as a special assistant on the defensive side of the ball as well. Here is Sark talking about the defensive coaches, how they're working together and the collaboration they have right now.
No, I think our defensive staff has done a tremendous job. You know, we've adjusted some defensively from where we were, and we've kind of evolved each year into where we've gone from one year to the next. And I think they've done a nice job. I think the addition of Johnny Nansen coming on board has been helpful with PK and bouncing some new ideas off of each other. But more importantly is I think that our guys are playing a style of football that I'm excited about. We play hard, we play fast, we play physical defense. We tackle really, really well. We're attacking the football right now defensively. We're creating turnovers, and they're having a lot of fun. I don't remember our guys celebrating the way our guys are celebrating one another right now when they're making great plays. And so that part's encouraging. I think that's part of our team. That's part of our culture right now. But I think a lot of that is stemming from what we're doing defensively and the confidence that they're playing with.
All right. There you go. Start talking about that defense. And right now your defense is playing at a high level. I believe Jadae Barron is the highest graded DB in the SEC right now. And hell, there's some guys in the secondary playing just as good, if not better than him. I think Malik Muhammad's playing really good, playing at a high level. I think Makuba is playing at a really high level back there in that secondary. And then you obviously Anthony Hill led the team in tackles last week versus UTSA. We talked about Colin Simmons last 2 weeks, 2 sacks, 9 pressures the last 2 weeks. He is starting to ascend. I think the most encouraging thing really about watching Texas football right now is that just take the UTSA game. Some of your best players, if not your best players at certain positions, are freshmen and first-time starters, or guys who may not even be starting. Right? I mean, hell, Eli Archman, about to have his first start. Ryan Wingo doesn't even start for you, but averages over 31 yards per touch and is easily one of your top 3 best wide receivers, in my opinion. And that guy's a freshman. And Colin Simmons may be your best pass rusher off the edge in terms of pass rushing. I think your best edge defender, maybe Baron Sorrell overall. But in terms of your best pass rusher, it's Colin Simmons right now. And he's only getting better. And he's a freshman. And like some of your best players on the team are just young guys. Your team is good. It's got depth. It's got, I think you got guys who are going to play on Sundays as frontline starters, but the guys who are up and coming, who are ascending and like showing flashes that oftentimes lead us to believe they're just as good, if not better than the guy in front of them, Ryan Wingo, Colin Simmons, Arch Manning. And those guys are really showing you the future is extremely bright, and the longevity, the sustainability of this thing is remarkable. Like I think now it reminds me of when I was on the 40 acres and we started recruiting guys, like BJ Johnson, Sloan Thomas, and Roy Williams, right in that wide receiver class in 2000. And then we got guys like Cedric Benson and got him in, and we got guys like Nathan Vasher and Huff Daddy and I think Jay Scott and Cedric Griffin were in that 01 class with Huff Daddy and Derek Johnson. VY and Blaylock in like 2002, and Aaron Ross was with that group. Rod Wright was with that group. And I started to witness it myself and see the roster transform. And although we were 11-1 team, we're winning 11 games and competing for championships. And we knew we were going to play on Sundays. We were NFL guys. We were looking at the guys behind us, the guys that were bringing in the recruiting classes, and during our own evaluation and saying, okay, that guy passed the eye test. He's going to be better than us. He's going to be better. DY's going to be better than us. All right. Roy's going to be better than any receiver that we have here. Nathan Bash is going to be better. Derek Johnson's going to be better than we are. And we are NFL players, but those guys are going to take it to a whole nother level. I'm starting to see that. And that gives me a lot of optimism for the future. Now, for Texas, back then it took 0102, took you about 3-4 more years. Then you end up winning a national title. I don't know if it takes you 3-4 more years now. I think everything's accelerated with transfer portal, NIL, It's just everything builds exponentially these days. So it happens a little faster than it did in Max Day, but I think it looks the same. All right, we come back. We'll have Off the Record on the other side right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get into a little off the record conversation. This one actually is coming from Hollywood. So I don't know. This has been brewing for a while. Wasn't sure when it was going to break, but it happened yesterday. According to TMZ, P. Diddy was arrested. Yeah, says Diddy was arrested by feds in New York City after a grand jury indictment. The update was just a couple of hours before Diddy got busted. He was confidently strolling around New York City with his son, Christian King Combs, even greeting to take selfies. Then a law enforcement officer source told TMZ that Diddy's arrest was already scheduled for Tuesday, but something happened that caused the feds to have to move a day earlier. I think they believed that he was going to get wind of it, and he's got obviously access to private planes and I'm sure offshore accounts and other international residences, and they didn't want him to jump ship. So PD has been arrested. They haven't said what the charges are. I don't see the charges here, but sure it's feds. So It's
Yeah.
serious.
It's not
you
not
know,
good.
it's real serious, dude. Yeah, it ain't good. So there you go. P Diddy. Everybody was wondering when it was gonna happen. Remember they raided his house or raided a couple of his houses like a couple of months ago. And everybody thought, oh man, maybe that just means P Diddy's gonna get. It's like, no, the feds don't waste resources raiding your place unless it's gonna lead to something. That's why their conviction rate is so dense in the 90s or something like that. They don't mess around. They don't mess around. So there you go. PD's been arrested. That's that story. How about this one though? When Texas was obviously ranked number one this weekend, Sunday, when it was announced. Kyle Omlang, who does a great job trolling the Aggies. Nobody does a better job trolling the Aggies than Kyle. He always puts out great stats to troll the Aggies. How about this one? Days since the last number one AP poll ranking for these SEC teams. For Texas, 0. For Georgia, 7. Alabama, 714. Pretty long. LSU, 1,706. For Mississippi State, 3,598 days since they were last ranked number one in the AP poll. For Oklahoma, 4,746 days. For Auburn, 4,996 days. For Florida, 5,404 days. For Missouri, 6,139 days. That had to be Chase Daniel. Had to be like Chase Daniel days, right? That had to be back then. Tennessee, 9,387 days since they were ranked number one. For Arkansas, 21,517 days since Arkansas was last ranked number one in the AP poll. For Ole Miss, 21,909 days since they were last ranked number one. And for the Aggies, yeah, they're not dead last, but they're pretty low on this list. 24,415 days, and the Aggies were last ranked number one in the AP poll. Kentucky, South Carolina, and Vanderbilt have never, ever been ranked number one. I'm a little surprised. That number for Alabama seems a little long. I guess it's 714 days for Alabama since they've been ranked number one. I guess it's because Georgia's been dominating the rankings.
Yeah.
So Georgia's probably been there for most of the time. Then Oklahoma, 4,746 days seems like a while for them. They were ranked number one. But because I ain't going to question Kyle's math because Kyle's better mathematician than I am. But that's just fascinating numbers there. So good stuff there from Kyle Umlang. All right. There you go. That is our off the record segment.
So wait, I'm just guessing 24,000 days.
Yeah, they're the Aggies. Yeah, the Aggies are 24,415 days since the last.
So that's like
one
66 years, 67 years.
Damn. Good
That's what I was trying to figure out the years on that one.
Yeah, I'm not. I was told never to do math live on air, so I'm not.
I have a calculator.
Oh, good. I was gonna say, I won't do it because I'm terrible at live on air.
I just googled it. I just looked at the 24,000 divided by.
Yeah, no, you're right.
That's a lot of years.
That's a lot of years. Yeah. No, do the Oklahoma one then. 4,746. 4,746. I want to know when last time that was. Maybe that was like, oh, no, it couldn't have been as long as 08 because Missouri's at 6,000.
13 years. So 2011?
I feel like, yeah, I guess that's right. No, you're right. I know. My brain actually, yeah, I feel like you're right. That makes sense though. Yeah, that makes sense. Around 2011. All right, because I was thinking this before that, but yeah, that's how you know. That's why I don't do math live on air. Yeah, so that and Missouri had to be those Chase Daniel years, like 2007.
Yeah, it had to be.
I'm trying to think about who that was. It had to be that group. Yeah, it had. There's no. When else was Missouri that relevant? Other than right now, Missouri's doing really good right now under Eli Drinkwitz. All right, good stat there. That's what the fact. I'm sorry, that's off the record, but we got little stats and factoids in our off the record there. We come back. We will jump into 9:00. We'll dive into Rod's rant in 9:00. I'll talk about a trend happening with NFL quarterbacks. Also, we'll go over what are these quarterback rankings, because I don't think they're almost unrecognizable, or at least the quarterbacks are who are at the top of these quarterback rankings. We'll dive into that. And what's the ugliest 0-2 start? We've talked about the best and most impressive 2-0 start in the NFL. Who's got the ugliest and the most abysmal 0-2 start so far? We'll get into that and talk about that. We'll also dive into some other news, notes, and nuggets, discuss some Longhorn football items as well. All of that and more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Davis coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a top of the charts Tuesday. That's when my co-host, the Idillionaire Patrick Davis, plays jams that reach the top of the Billboard charts on this day in history. So we appreciate my man Patrick hooking us up there. He also hooks us up with the topic for the big fat poll of the day. Patrick which is already posted, by the way, at the Horn ATX. Patrick, give the folks the topic for the big fat poll of the day.
Big fat poll of the day today. Which is a bigger worry for the Cowboys, rushing offense or rushing defense? And right now, rushing defense still got the lead with 63%, 37% for the rushing offense. The people believe that rushing defense, which I get. It looked really, really bad.
The prison of the moment too. They just saw it. I mean,
but this is so the reality. The rushing offense looked terrible in that game too.
It's true, but they're already used to that. They're accustomed to it. Like they saw it wasn't great last year, so to them that's not a shock. The shock is that, damn, the New Orleans Saints ran, and it's also they're not used to the Saints being good.
Yeah.
So the Saints, so I think it's shock value more than anything. Prison of the moment. So I'm with you. I think they're both equally disturbing, but I think the prison of the moment thing is like they just ran downhill on the Dallas Cowboys, and the Cowboys couldn't stop it. They scored on 6 straight drives. They didn't realize how good that offense looked. They scored a touchdown on every possession in the first 3 quarters of the game. Yes.
Good Lord.
That's scarring for, I think, some Cowboys fans. Like that, I think that was his borderline score. And it was traumatic. I think it took them back to last postseason against Green Bay a little bit with Aaron Jones. And it took them to some of the in-game stuff, the in-season stuff from last year against Buffalo and Miami and Arizona. So I think they're connecting those experiences, and they're trauma bonding. Cowboys fans are trauma bonding here. They're bonded by the trauma of the defense looking so bad against the run. So I think that's what it is. But I agree with you. I think they're both equally troublesome for the Dallas Cowboys. All right, that's the topic for the big fat poll today. Go check it out. Matter of fact, we'll get into some more NFL discussion here because we'll hear from Micah Parsons talking about that disastrous performance the Cowboys had against the Saints on defense, and we'll also get into the worst 0-2 performances so far, the worst 0-2 teams, I should say, in the NFL, and which one of them have the I think the lowest, I would say the lowest upside. Which one of those teams do we think is pretty much going to be struggle to get out of the basement, which they're already in, starting at 0-2? So we'll talk about that too. And we got Rod's rant on the other side, and we'll talk about a trend that I see developing among NFL quarterbacks. But before we do any of that, let's get updated, educated, and informed on all the top stories of the day with Patrick Davis and the Horn Headlines.
All right, your Horn Headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. In the MLB, the Astros dropped their opening game with the Padres 3-1 last night. Spencer Arrighetti was able to get through 5 innings, giving up 2 runs, but the Astros offense couldn't get anything going against Yu Darvish. Hunter Brown gets the call today, trying to even the series against Michael King and San Diego. And the Rangers begin their series with the Blue Jays today, with Nathan Eovaldi getting the start. This will also begin the Rangers' last homestand of the season, playing the next 7 at home, where they are 7 games above 500 this season. And in the NFL, the Falcons snuck out a 22-21 victory over the Eagles on Monday Night Football. A Drake London touchdown with 34 seconds left got the lead for the Falcons, and Jalen Hurts threw a pick to seal the game. And that's your Horn Headlines.
All right, thank you, Patrick, for the Horn Headlines. Appreciate those. Okay, we'll get to Rod's rant coming up on the other side, but I want to talk some NFL here, and let's start with the question that I threw out earlier about the 0-2 teams. Which 0-2 teams right now have had the ugliest start so far? Now, your options are, now we talked about the best 2-0 teams already, and there are a lot of them that are really impressive. I took New Orleans. That's the most impressive one. They have the highest point differential, largest point differential in the league at plus 62. The next nearest team, I believe, is at plus 35. So they look really good. We talked about Minnesota looking really good with Sam Darnold. And the reason Derek Carr, I think Derek Carr is the biggest reason, I should say, for New Orleans' turnaround. I brought up these quarterback metrics earlier. If you go look at Pro Football Focus passing grade, passer rating, and QBR, Derek Carr is leading all 3 categories. I guarantee that's never happened in Derek Carr's career at any point, let alone to start the season. But some of the other stories of the great stories to the 2-0 starts have been the unexpected the unexpected play of some of these quarterbacks, right? Nobody expected Justin Fields to learn how to manage a game. He is managing a game better than we've ever seen him. That's partly why Pittsburgh is starting 2-0. You go look at New Orleans. I just told you why Derek Carr is playing the best football of his life. That's why they've started 2-0, and also Clint Kubiak. Extreme makeover addition for that offense, leading the NFL now at least top 5 in play action pass rate and pre-snap motion rate, and leading the NFL doing both simultaneously, by the way. When last year they were bottom of the NFL, 32nd, actually last NFL in both categories. That's something different. Tampa Bay, Baker Mayfield, he is second in passer rating. He is 5th in QBR. Baker Mayfield's playing some of his best football, so Tampa Bay is 2-0. Geno Smith is playing really good football. I talked about that. He is 4th right now in QBR, and he is 7th in passer rating in the NFL. So Seattle is also 2-0. So a big, and of course we know Kansas City, Houston's in that conversation too, Buffalo, but they have great quarterbacks. That's why they are there. Even the Chargers are a little bit surprising with Justin Herbert and now playing hardball ball. How about this as the perfect hardball ball stat? Hardball ball stat. Say that 5 times fast. They are leading the NFL in yards before contact per carry. The Chargers are at 2 point. They're basically 2.5 yards before contact per carry, leading the league. New Orleans is second at 2.2. That is such a hardball ball stat that we are already we're trying to play bully ball. So we're going 3 yards in a cloud of dust. We're going to give our running backs 3 yards. with every carry. That's essentially what they're doing. 2.5 yards before contact per carry. So that's part of why the Chargers are also 2-0.
J.K. Dobbins is playing really well right now too.
Okay, there you go.
J.K. Dobbins, he had 10 carries for 135 yards against the Raiders, and then came back in the second week. Again, they played the Raiders and the Panthers, but then had 17 carries for 131 yards and a touchdown in week 2. So
hardball ball, man, they're gonna run the rock.
If he can stay healthy, he's been playing well.
So he might end up being one of the league leaders actually rushing if he continues to stay healthy. So we talked about the 2-0 teams, why they're 2-0, and now I want to get to the 0-2 teams. And the 0-2 teams are, and you tell me, Patrick, who you think the ugliest. We'll get into who I think maybe the ugliest or the most surprising, however you want to put it. The Rams, Carolina, the Giants, Denver, Jacksonville, Indy, Tennessee. Damn, the AFC South. Texans looking good right now. Baltimore and Cincinnati. Which one as the ugliest of those 0-2 starts, or maybe the most surprising of the 0-2 starts? Baltimore, I know, but they started against Kansas City, but then they lost to the Raiders, right?
No, they didn't.
Was that who Baltimore? Who did Baltimore lose to in week 2? They lost to somebody.
They lost to they did lose to the Raiders. Sorry, you're right.
It was the Raiders. Yeah. I know. It's so, trust me, it's hard to fathom. You think you're wrong. It sounds wrong. You're like, that ain't right. They gotta be somebody else thinking about it. No way. Was it the Chargers? Like, no, it was the Raiders. Just like you like, oh, they did that against the Raiders because the Raiders are supposed to be a bit of a pushover.
Yeah, that's like the Bengals losing week 1 to the Patriots.
Yes, you almost like, you're like, no, it couldn't have been. Who was it? Who was it? Was it Miami? Was it really the? Yeah, it was the Patriots. So it doesn't make sense early on. So that. I don't know if Baltimore is the most concerning. I think they let one loss beat them twice. Mac Brown always said, don't let one loss beat you twice. I bet they were still emotionally wrecked from losing that game to Kansas City. They probably put so much in it.
Yeah.
And it was, they thought, oh man, they're so close. And that's who they're measuring themselves against every week. So be like, hey man, we got to measure against Kansas City. That's our standard. And then I think they just lost focus against the Raiders, and they probably underrated the Raiders. They took them lightly, and it's the NFL. You can't take a team lightly; you will get beat.
No,
I don't give a damn who they. You'll get beat taking a team lightly and not being ready to play.
And I'll say the Bengals was probably similar the other way around. That they were looking ahead, thinking we can cakewalk this one through the we'll cakewalk through the Patriots and we'll get to the Bengals because they played a lot better against the Chiefs.
Yeah, that's actually I agree with the 100%.
I mean, there's some people that believe that maybe if there wasn't a call or two that went the right way, that the Bengals win that game. So,
well, a pick that got called back. By the way, was it the 17th interception that's been called back for a penalty for Patrick Mahomes, the most by any quarterback since 2018? Damn. They had another one in that game. That was big. That was a big call. Yeah, so I'm with you on that. I won't say that Cincinnati and Baltimore are in the ugliest of the losses because I think Kansas City had a lot to do with both of those. I love the way you put it. They'll bounce back. Hell, Baltimore might bounce back this week. Hopefully for Cowboys fans, they don't. But I got a feeling they will. So that one is those
Cincinnati
two.
plays the Commanders.
So boom, yeah, there you go. That's another bounce back factor right there.
Yeah.
With the Commanders. The Commanders are, we'll get into them a little bit because they're not in this category, the 0-2 we're talking about, but we can talk about them a little bit because they have a strange situation with the quarterback in their offense right now with Jaden Daniels that I think might be worth discussing. But let's talk about the Rams.
The injuries.
Yeah, because Cooper Kupp
Kupp's going to be out for an extended period of time. Puka Nacua is out.
Puka's out.
Yeah.
It's good for Jay Witt. So Jay Witt's going to play a lot.
I mean, it's good for Jay Witt if he doesn't mind losing a lot of games.
Yeah, right. But Jay Witt's he's going to play. There's no doubt about that now. But I'm with you now. The Rams without Puka, they're saying Puka may not play till like week 9.
Yeah, and Cooper Kupp's for a while now too. They're considering putting him on IR.
Man, they better bubble wrap Matthew Stafford. That to me in that division, because the way Arizona's playing really good now, right? Arizona, but not really good. They're playing much better than anybody expected them to play.
Yes.
and most of it, like I said, going back to the quarterbacks, Kyler Murray is second right now in Pro Football Focus passing grade. He is fourth in passer rating and second in QBR. He's playing some of his best football he's ever played. So the Rams, it's no longer a gimme win against Arizona in that division. And it ain't no gimme win against San Fran.
Even though they're
even though that's right, they're beat
because
up.
Debo's out now.
And Debo's out. And that's a good point. But it ain't no gimme win against San Fran ever.
No.
Then look how good Seattle's playing now, though.
Seattle's playing really well too.
With Mike McDonald as the he's calling the plays now, but he's the head coach there in the defensive mind.
Now we will say
Seattle is the OC.
Seattle does fall into they beat the Broncos barely, who the Broncos will get into the 0-2, and then they beat the Patriots in overtime. So they're not necessarily playing world beaters yet.
Beater, I agree. But still, they're not a pushover, though.
No, and they're winning. Same thing we said about the Texans, man. Sometimes in the NFL, you just got to win.
Got to win ugly. Sometimes it's going to look ugly, man. You got to deal with the ugly. And, they're find a way to win. My point is that division is just tough. Starting 0-2, and the Rams with all those injuries, it is not looking good for the rest. So their 0-2 is an ugly 0-2 just because of the injuries and the way.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the fact that you went in and felt pretty good about your wide receiver core after getting Puka Nacua drafted last year. Cooper Kupp's coming back. Things look good, and then both out just immediately kills you.
Yep. So the Rams, that's a concern. What about Carolina? We know that's just ugly. I mean, they've already benched their starting quarterback. They've already benched Bryce Young. They're going Andy Dalton now in week 2. So they're essentially they're not tanking, but they're
tanking. The Giants are tanking. They're both tanking. Like I mean, we can.
The Giants are tanking.
But both them, when we say the ugliest team, it's the Giants and the Panthers. Like I don't think there's anyone right now that week 2 we can say they'd be fine not winning a game this year. I think they would have won. They'd be fine winning. Ugly, though. They'd be fine winning one game and just not going in the annals of a completely defeated team and no win team.
Yep.
But one win, they'd be fine. Cool. Give us the number 1 pick. We don't care. We're moving on from our quarterback.
Yep. Those two, that's not surprising because I think we all knew they were going to be bad. The Giants,
exactly,
and Carolina. So that's not surprising to me either. Actually, the most surprising ones, because the ugliest might be, okay, you're right. Those are the ugliest, Carolina, New Jersey, but they're not surprising because we knew they were going to be bad. The Rams is probably a little more surprising, but that's because of injuries. But it's actually in the A, and then we talked about Baltimore and Cincinnati. We believe they're going to recover pretty fine. They'll have bounce back. There are bounce back factors that I think will help both of those teams. The AFC South, though, Jacksonville, Indy, and Tennessee. I'm not sure how ugly their 0-2 starts are, but I know for those teams, it's still going to be tough for them to recover. Tennessee actually had a chance to win both of their games in week 1 and 2. They had the meltdown, remember, where they were up 14 points. They were up 2 touchdowns on Caleb Williams and the Bears, and then ended up having a meltdown there and lost that game. And then, honestly, they had a week 2. They could have won their week 2 game. They had a boneheaded decision to lateral the ball under pressure. They resulted in a turnover. and that's why they lost that week 2 game. Is pretty much turnovers. That's really what hurt them right in the first 2 weeks of the season. Otherwise, Tennessee's defense, that crazy, freaky defense I've talked about with T'Vondre Sweat and Quandre Diggs and Jamal Adams and then L'Jarius Sneed, all of these very, very unique freaks on defense. It's worked out for them. They actually look pretty good on defense. They can't take care of the football on offense. But they had a chance to win both of those games. So that's actually, I think, a more optimistic 0-2.
Yeah,
Tennessee.
Well, because Tennessee too, it was if they could put it together. Week 1, Tony Pollard played well. Will Levis didn't. Week 2, Will Levis played a little bit better. Tony Pollard played worse. So you have to be able to put those two together and have Pollard and Levis have a game together. So you have a little bit more running game and passing together because neither one's going to be good enough to carry you. So they need to be both on the same page. And they just weren't in week 1 and week 2. They weren't on the same page. I'll throw you a team that the concerning part of it for Denver is they get Bo Nix. Bo Nix is 2 games, 0 touchdowns, 4 interceptions.
He's averaging like just 5 yards per attempt, I think, too. He's not throwing the football downfield. He's only completed 5 passes more than 10 yards downfield.
Yeah, and he has 4 interceptions.
That's not good.
So for the whole Sean Payton, we've got our guy, and we wanted him over everybody anyway, and all of those things being said, he's not being terrible.
But he doesn't look
but
like
he's not
the future of the franchise.
No, he's looking as if that may, even if he is going to be okay, it's going to take a little bit more time than they thought, that he can't be a starter week 1 and be able to do anything with this team. They were all said that they have too many wide receivers. You don't, because none of those guys are names. And I know you like all of them a little bit, but none of those, they're all wide receiver 3s, really, maybe wide receiver 2s, but you need wide receiver 1s. And so that one is a little bit more, because that is also in a super tough division that I don't think Denver was expecting to possibly be tanking this year.
Yeah, because you got the Chargers starting off really good. That's Harbaugh ball, and then you got Kansas City. So right now, if they're gonna have that kind of quarterback play where they can't even throw the football vertically downfield, and you don't have a dominant running game, that's gonna be trouble. I mean, how about this little stat on Bo Nix? 30% completion percentage on passes 5 yards or more downfield. That is the lowest in the NFL by 6%, and the worst figure in weeks 1 and 2 in the last 10 years for a quarterback.
Yeah. So all the Sean Payton, and this is also somewhat of the Broncos just kind of swinging, missing in a lot of hirings, is that this is starting to fall into the Sean Payton quarterback whisperer. Maybe a bit overrated right now in today's game.
It's gonna hurt his reputation for being a quarterback guru. There's no question.
Yeah, he basically had to
handpick this guy. Yeah.
Well, that he couldn't do anything with Russell Wilson. Actively tried to get him to break his contract, which was yelling and screaming at him so much that he would break his contract so that they didn't have to pay him all this money. Then get rid of him and have this massive weight hanging over their heads. They draft a rookie, then make all the statements that they wanted him and keep bringing up the point that he would have gotten Mahomes, but he knew it. He knew that he was going to be great, but they couldn't get him. And all these things that he said in the offseason, and then that's kind of their first couple of weeks. I get it. They're rookies. Sometimes it takes time, but if you're going to put him out there, then you need him to play at a little bit better level. So that one, I think, is a bad omen that I don't think that team was expecting to still be in full rebuild mode, and it looks through 2 weeks that they're in full rebuild mode still.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's one of those loathsome, 0-2s. That's an ugly 0-2 for Denver. That might be one of the ugliest. Indy 0-2 as well. I mean, we saw them. Part of that is the Texans beating them. The problem with Anthony Richardson is, because I like watching him, he's fun to watch. He basically just can't make like the layups, but he can make the spectacular look routine, right? Like he can. It's crazy. He's long, like a golfer. Like his long game is amazing, but he can't make a putt to save his life. He can't make a layup, but like I said, he can make a half-court three-pointer. probably with more regularity than most than most players. So I just think for him, it's all about when Anthony Richardson develops a baseline of consistency, because his wow plays are as impressive as anybody's, but then I don't know if he can execute the routine consistently, the routine play consistently. I think that's his biggest issue. And we saw that against the Texans, right? 350 plus yard bombs, but completed less than 50% of his passes. That's Anthony Richardson in a nutshell. And I don't know if they can win consistently with that being the case. He's got to minimize the risk in his game and keep the reward in his game and become more efficient overall as a quarterback. And I don't right now, he's not that right now. He's still kind of a high risk, high reward, explosive, dynamic playmaker, but still not a quarterback that can manage a game. And we talked about that with Justin Fields. Justin Fields now, even though his stats aren't spectacular, watch him play. He's managing the game really well.
Yeah,
like he's learning how to just manage a football game. And sometimes that's a step every quarterback's got to learn. I don't give a damn how freakishly talented you are. If you don't know how to manage a football game, you'll never be a franchise quarterback. Never. And I think that's Anthony Richardson's next step. He's got to learn how to manage a game. He just learn how to manage a game. And if he can do that, that's a scary thought for the rest of the league. Also, their rush defense, not good. Remember what Texans ran for, I forget how much, but Joe Mixon had 30 rushes on him and had the most rushing yards in week 1 for a running back. And then Indy gave up 237 yards against Indy. Green Bay ran for 237 yards against Indy in the first half of that game.
Yeah. Josh Jacobs.
Their rush defense is
Josh Jacobs, 32 carries for 151 yards.
Their rush defense is a problem.
Yeah.
That's why Texas ran it so much. It was game specific. They were like, nah, these guys are terrible stopping the run.
Yeah.
So they got to figure that out. And the game management thing for Anthony Richardson. I would say they have a gloomy 0-2 as well. And Jacksonville, oh, man, I don't know what's up with Trevor Lawrence. They just paid Trevor Lawrence. And Trevor Lawrence just does not look like I don't know. He just doesn't like a playoff quarterback to me. And that's evidenced by him only been in the playoffs once since they drafted him. They've only made the playoffs once since he's become their starting quarterback. And he's supposed to be at this point now, second contract. They're supposed to be a playoff contender. I don't know if they are a playoff contender. I wouldn't pick the Jags to make the playoffs.
And I feel a little bad for him because they always get him weapons that, again, they get a lot of wide receiver 2s. And they think if we get 6 wide receiver 2s, that's like having a wide receiver 1. You're like, but it's not, because you need that guy. Like if you look at the Cowboys, the difference of CeeDee Lamb versus everyone else, it's night and day. The Vikings, the reason they're existing is because Sam Darnold has Justin Jefferson. It's a life changer for a quarterback. And so when we see what he has to deal with, and they get Gabe Davis, but again, Gabe Davis is a wide receiver 2.
Mm-hmm.
And so you bring in another guy that fits in that, Zay Jones, Christian Kirk, and all those, and maybe Evan Ingram is a tight end, like all those guys that are just right below that level. So none of them are ever getting super open. None of them are ever the guy that you can just say, screw it, I can throw it up there and go get it. We talk about, there's a clip of Baker Mayfield talking. He goes, if Mike Evans is in single coverage, I throw it at that way. Like single coverage, I know I'm getting it to him. So you have to put it in the area, and it's a catch. And there's nobody like that on the Jaguars. So he's stuck in a position where he's not good enough to elevate them to that level, and they're not good enough to elevate him to a bunch of wins, and they just stick in that middle ground of everyone on that team is okay, but somebody needs to be the star, and there doesn't seem to be a star on that team.
Yep. I think you put it perfectly. I agree with you 100%. That's exactly what it feels like. Because there's talent. Every time I look up, the Jaguars have signed another receiver or drafted a guy.
Like you put Patrick Mahomes on that team, they're great.
Lord. Yeah.
They can do a lot of things.
Oh my God, it'd be amazing.
But that's what I'm saying but Trevor, and if you give Trevor Lawrence, CeeDee Lamb, or Justin Jefferson or something like that, he probably they probably have a great connection.
Yeah, I wonder why. Yeah, I mean, I can't say they're not bringing in talent, but you're right. They don't have a true number one, like an elite number one, but they do have a really deep core of weapons and skill position guys. But maybe you're right about that. Like I said, he's only made the playoffs once. They have won a playoff game since he's been there, but they've only made the playoffs once since he became their starting quarterback. And you think at this point, we'd be talking about the Jags in the offseason as a playoff contender. I haven't heard anybody talk about the Jags as a playoff contender. Not even, no. Not even, and they're not doing anything to change our minds in the first 2 weeks.
But that was also because the only reason
they drafted Brian Thomas Jr. That's why they might. Remember they drafted, so they
right.
may have drafted a guy they saw as being the true number one for him.
That may be it. That may be who they want to bring in and do it. I don't know. He's been that yet, but it's early. He may get there. What did he go 4 for 47 and a touchdown? So maybe he's getting there, but he's just not having the big plays yet. You gotta have a little bit more explosion than that, but I mean, he had
two receptions for 94 yards against the Browns.
Okay,
2 receptions for 94.
So he may be the guy they want to get there, and it'll just maybe that connection will find it because they just need to have a star on that team. They just don't have one right now.
No, that's a good point. I agree with you 100%, and I think that's why they drafted Brian Thomas. I almost forgot they drafted a receiver. In the first round, 23rd
again overall. They drafted a guy that we didn't think was it's a really good player. He feels like once you go to Jacksonville, you just fall into that role, don't you?
No, you're right. And some people feel like that Neighbors was the guy there. The number one guy, and then he was the second option there with LSU. He tested like some freakish numbers though at the combine.
No, I mean he looks good in the first 2 weeks. You're right on those stats. So maybe they found a guy and it'll get there. But I think they're not in the playoff conversation as much because the main reason they've been in it in the years past is because the AFC South was so bad.
That's true.
That they were just picked to win the division, and if you win the division, you're in the playoffs. But now they're not picked to win the division, so they don't. It's not like there's 2 teams getting in from the AFC South, and so if the Texans get in, they don't think another team's getting in. Would be why they wouldn't get as many predictions.
No, I like that. I forgot about Christian. They got Christian Kirk. They got Gabe Davis and Brian Thomas Jr. That's a decent wide receiver.
It's not bad.
I need Trevor Lawrence to uplift that group. It's on you, Trevor. You need to uplift that group, man. You got weapons. You've always had weapons. So and he just got paid. He got paid,
so he needs to.
Yeah,
I don't know if he's been there. And I mean, again, I like Doug Peterson, but it feels like that
Devin Duvernay's on that team now too.
They got him now too. Nice.
I want to say Devin Duvernay. Yeah, Devin Duvernay's. With the Jacks. Yep, says it right here. So I didn't realize he was with. Man, you got enough weapons, Trevor. You need to quit making excuses. It's about time for you to take. I think they drafted Brian Thomas to be like you just said, his guy. Like
his guy. If he's got his guy, then
that's your guy.
Then you got to start making those plays. You got to start getting the ball downfield a little bit better.
Yep, I didn't realize Devin Duvernay was there, but he is there. He's returning kicks mostly for him, but he's not being used in the wide receiver rotation, but he is with the Jacks. All right, there you go. So those are the ugliest 0-2 situations in the NFL. We come back, we'll dive into Rod's rant, more NFL discussion. I'll tell you, I'll identify a trend that I've noticed with NFL quarterbacks. I think this is a trend that is just starting to peak, and I think you'll start to see it more and more, become more and more prevalent in the NFL. We'll talk about that on the other side, and also we'll dive into, if we have time, we'll dive into some other NFL news, notes, and nuggets. All of that and more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Mohawk, Rod Babers coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get into Rod's rant of the day. A couple of topics I wanted to get into here. If we have time, we'll get to the Micah Parsons audio and some Jerry Jones quotes. If not, we can get to them tomorrow when we talk Dallas Cowboys. But I want to talk about a trend I noticed with quarterbacks in the NFL. And it's starting to, I think, now really affect the kind of evolutionary adaptations that we're seeing on both sides of the ball, offense and defense, because it's so prevalent now. But the quarterback run game is the first 2 weeks now more prevalent than it's ever been. Quarterback rushing yards through the first 2 weeks over, and this actually is not including Monday Night Football. So this is actually not with last night's rushing totals for quarterbacks in there. And that's obviously Jalen Hurts is going to add to that, a big part of it. For over 1,400 quarterback rushing yards through the first 2 weeks, 1,436. But like I said, you'll add Jalen Hurts in there. In 2023, through the first 2 weeks of the season, you were at 1,247. At 2022, you were at 1,170. In 2021, you were at 1,264. In 2020, 1,199. And prior to that, you hadn't reached 1,000. Like prior to that, 2020 was the first year you reached 1,000 yards in quarterback rushing yards through the first 2 weeks. So it basically about 5 years ago, this thing really, really started to shift. And it's two factors here. It's design runs, a big part of it. Number one, teams just have more athletic quarterbacks, and they're using them in design runs. Back in 2009, when ESPN started keeping track of this, there were 225 designed runs called for NFL quarterbacks in 2009. Last season, that number was 590. It was 590. And week one of this season, there were 37 called in week one, which would put the pace at about 629 designed runs for the 2024 season, which of course would be a record. How about this little VY shout out? In 2007, VY led the NFL in quarterback design runs. He just had 20 of them. 20 led the NFL in quarterback design runs. And you could argue back then they didn't run enough of them. He should have been running more of them because the NFL just wasn't used to it, right? This is not including scrambles and sneaks. It's just design runs within the game plan, not necessarily situational. And if you start looking at, obviously the scramble element of it, because like I said, the design runs, those have increased, and I expect those to continue to increase. But the scrambles are a big part of it too. And if you go look at just the scrambles in the NFL last season, all right, compared to this season, or just go look at it over time. Since last season, you had overall quarterbacks run for 7,400 yards and 398 first downs on scrambles. Scrambles alone. That was last season. That's double what the number was, or damn near double what the number was in 2007. 3,614 yards scrambling, 195 first downs for quarterbacks scrambling. Efficiency on those scrambles has continued to increase. 6.8 yards per scramble was the case in 2007, 36% first down rate. That number now above 7 yards per scramble, according to their numbers, and 39% first down rate. Scrambles work. Scrambles are arguably the most efficient and annoying play in football for defenses to try to defend. According to Warren Sharp, the data scientist, he said scrambles have the most efficiency of any play in football in the NFL. He said scrambles average like 8.5 yards based on his research, 8.5 yards per play over the time that he has been researching scrambles and quarterback run game. Guys, 8.5 yards per play. If you're looking at yards per attempt, you had 3 quarterbacks last year average over 8.5 yards per attempt. I think you have 5 right now, currently averaging over 8.5 yards per attempt. You get 8.5 yards on anything per play. That is really, really impressive. And essentially, that's what you get with scramble. And the scramble to me is almost multiple plays in one. It's the initial play is the base play, whatever it is. And that play breaks down quarterback scrambles, but then it's versus scramble drill, which is the wide receivers adjusting their routes to, obviously to adjust to the quarterback to be in a better position to be a target for the QB. And then after the scramble drill is defended, if you're lucky enough to defend it well, then you got to worry about the quarterback actually becoming a runner and scrambling. And the best quarterbacks make you defend all three. Patrick Mahomes makes you defend all three. I think Josh Allen makes you defend all three of those concepts. As a matter of fact, and Patrick, can you do me a favor? I know I didn't warn you about it. Can you pull up that CJ Stroud sound again you found earlier about CJ Stroud running? CJ Stroud is trying to add the scramble element to his game because he knows how dangerous it is. Bobby Sloak's probably told him, like, dude, I used to work on defense. Bobby Sloak's Belichickian, which means he has worked on both sides of the ball, more than one phase of the game. He worked most of his early career on defense. And he's probably informed CJ Stroud that, man, if you add scrambling to your repertoire, like you have the no-look pass and other, high-level concepts, and the defense has to defend the base play, the scramble drill, and then the scramble with you, like Patrick Mahomes, you could be indefensible. Like Josh Allen, you could be damn an indefensible weapon at quarterback. Here's CJ Stroud this past offseason training camp talking about adding more scrambling and more mobility to his game.
Want to get done in that, and I think when we stay true to that, that the sky is the limit when it comes to scrambling. Because I don't know if y'all noticed, but I'll try to run a little more. Joe challenged me to see how athletic I was, so I felt like I got loose a couple times. But I think that's another thing I can get better at, is just scrambling. And when they play good on the back end, being able to use my feet.
There you go. If he does add it to his game, like I said, that's going to be scary. And for years, I mean, Lamar Jackson been one of the most dangerous weapons when he is scrambling. In 2023, Lamar Jackson averaged 6.6 yards per scramble. That's because everybody knows he's scrambling, so they usually put a spy on him, or they'll adjust the game plan to make sure they account for him. Defensive end, stand at home, squeeze in the pocket, that kind of stuff. He's still averaging 6.6 yards per scramble. In 2019, when nobody had a plan or a template to stop Lamar Jackson as a scrambler, he averaged over 10 yards a scramble. And he's basically been averaging between 7.1 and 7.9 yards per scramble between there. Still really damn good. I mean, that's still a lot of yards you're getting scrambling to show you how deadly it can be. Cowboys going to have to deal with this because Jaden Daniels of the Washington Commanders, he scrambles as much as anybody. At least coming out of college, he did. He and Drake May. Drake May's really scramble happy too. More and more quarterbacks are willing to rely on scrambling. It used to be something I think that was discouraged. I think a lot more coaches are saying, listen, as long as you do it in a smart way and you're a responsible runner, take care of yourself, scramble. It's another it is another thing, another data point that the defense has to account for. Drake May since 2014. He has the most scrambles in the Power 5 since then, 76 scrambles. Jaden Daniels in 2022 had 70 and had 67 in 2019. Two different teams, two different systems, different squads, everything, different conferences. The dude likes to scramble. And I think he's going to scramble a lot with Washington. As a matter of fact, when he scrambled against Power 5 teams at LSU, he had a 27% explosive play rate on scrambles alone. It's a really tough thing to defend, so you can see why a lot of quarterbacks are trying to add it as a part of their weaponry. And there's some coaches who bake it into the game plan. Brian Dable was famous for, with Josh Allen and for Daniel Jones, baking it into the play, that if it's part of your progression, 1, 2, 3, scramble. We'll make the routes. I'll clear you out an opening with the route, so you'll know, hey, this side of the field should be clear of defenders. So you'll know exactly what pocket of the defense you want to scramble to. They would bake it into the play. And also, Greg Davis did that with that VY game-winning touchdown, I believe, against USC in a real rudimentary form. I believe it is kind of baked in that he has the option, just go scramble. If you ain't got it, just go take it, because VY was so damn good at it. So that's what's really affecting. And a lot of this is now teams, Amina Kimes claims that teams played 60% too high safeties in week 1. So they're giving you the underneath stuff. They're going to give you the short game. They're going to give you the run game. They're going to give you all the underneath stuff. They're going to take away the vertical shots. They're going to take away the deep ball. And teams are deciding, you know what? I'm going to work smarter, not harder. If they want to back their safeties up and give me the 5 to 10 yard range, I'm going to take it, which is why the average depth of target in 2024, 6.9 yards, ladies and gentlemen. Lowest it's been in 10 years. Matter of fact, it was a yard higher I believe, a yard higher 10 years ago. Well, actually, think about it was a yard higher 5 years ago. And already we're at 6.9 yards per average depth of target. And in 2019, you were at 7.9. Your yards per reception, you're at 10.4. In 2019, you were at 11.4. That's a whole yard in just 5 seasons. So I think, and then just 5 years ago, your too high safety rate, man, you were at 38, 39%. Now you're at 60%. Everything's getting a little bit more extreme. So I think the adjustment by the offense is we're just going to take what they give us. They're going to give us the run game. We'll take it with a light box. You're going to give us the underneath. We'll take it. Average depth of target, 6.9 yards. Passing yards per game per team now, 193. That's the lowest that I can remember in any recent memory. You can go back 10 years, you won't find passing yards per game per team below 200. Now you're at 193.2. Your sack rate, highest it's been in the 2000s, 7.8%, which is also kind of crazy. If you think the ball's coming out quicker, how are these guys getting sacked? Maybe it's offensive line play. I think defense is just becoming a little bit savvier about how to defend modern offenses. Take the top off the, take the verticality, I should say, away from the offense, force them to have to operate underneath, and then you let human error take over from there, right? Long as you force them to have to march 10, 12, 13, 14, 15 play drives, chance of somebody making a mistake are really high, and you let human error help you out as a defense. But also, there's a chance the offenses grow frustrated and they want to force the football downfield. And they want to hand the football off, which they're doing more now. There's a chance, you end up in a 4th down and then you can stop them. Or if you get to the red zone, then the defense has an advantage because the space is restricted. I think defenses are just savvier now about how to defend offense, which is why you had the fewest touchdown passes through 2 weeks. Second fewest touchdown passes through 2 weeks, 69 that you've had in the 2000s. Something's going on. I think quarterback run game is a big part of it. I think the safeties, having 2 deep safeties, is a big part of it. I think there's a shift that we're starting to notice with offensive football in the NFL. All right, we come back. We'll wrap this thing up, put it in the oven. But before we do that, we'll play Who Said That. That's when Patrick plays pieces of audio from the sports world, sometimes beyond the sports world of The Voice. You have to identify and recall who said that. We'll play it when we come back right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis on Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Davis coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a top of the charts Tuesday. That's when my co-host Patrick Davis, the Idillionaire, plays jams that reach the top of the Billboard charts on this day in history. Also, he comes up with the topic for the Big Fat Poll of the day, which we're also very grateful for. And today it is an easy question for you, Cowboys fans. He wants to know which is your biggest worry. The rushing offense for the Cowboys or the rushing defense for the Cowboys. 61% of you say it's the Cowboys rushing defense. All right. Before we get out of here, before we wrap this thing up and put it in the oven, time to play Who Said That. That's when we play pieces of audio from the sports world, sometimes beyond the sports world, and based on the context clues or familiarity of the voice, hopefully you can recall and identify who said that.
Where were you when you found out that?
Found out that we were number one. Pretty sure I was on the couch watching the Cowboys get smoked. So it was kind of bittersweet. We figured out we were number one. That's cool. The Cowboys are getting their butt handed. So
I like that. That was Jake Majors. Nice. So I guess he's a Cowboys fan. Didn't know Jake Majors was a Cowboys fan. Found that out. You'd be surprised. A lot of these guys aren't NFL fans. It's so weird to me. Like they don't have some of them don't have NFL teams. Like a lot of them they don't watch the NFL football like that.
Yeah, that's always
it's weird to me too. And I was like, man, that's so strange. I mean, there's lots of guys who do, but I feel like more and more I'm when I talk to the young guys, they don't watch NFL and don't have an NFL team. Really, it's weird. Some of them don't even watch college football. Like some of them, like I don't watch a lot of football. I'm like that's then you're weird to me. And I ain't gonna say which players on the team. There are a couple players on the team like I don't watch football. I'm like, you don't watch football?
Yeah, that's
what? Play it. What?
That's
like,
it's
what,
hard.
what
I can get the concept a little bit, but it is like you have to live football to be really great at it. It's really hard to not like love it and live it and be great. And you can just say, no, I love playing football. Playing football is great, but I don't necessarily want to
watch it.
I don't want on my free time watch it. But then you're like, but the great ones, that's all they do. That's why they're so great. Because it's obsession.
Very rare. It's very rare to have a great football player's night. I think Ricky was kind of like that at one point. Ricky Williams.
Yeah.
I think Ricky was a two-sport athlete, and Ricky was very eccentric. So I remember Ricky saying like one time, like I didn't necessarily love the game, but I'm necessarily watching a ton of football, but listen, I think you need those mental reps. You should be watching a game. It's basically you getting reps because if you're a football player watching a game, you always put yourself in that scenario. What would I do in that situation? I would do this. I would do that. I like my guys thinking through the game. And yes, do you like it? Do you love it? Or do you live it? Oh, man, I want guys who live it. That's who I'm recruiting, guys who live it. All right. Thanks for my man Patrick doing a great job as always. Thanks to you guys out there for listening and for watching. Remember, the revolution will not be televised. We talk about it right here on the Rodcast. We love you guys. We mean that. Take care of yourselves, but more importantly, take care of each other. Join us tomorrow, same time, same channel. Until then, hook 'em and peace.